Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and this is being recorded on November 4th at before the opening, the market opening. This is the day before election in the United States. So for the ones that are international viewers, we're going to have an election tomorrow. So this is kind of the pre-recording of what the market's doing and some of the news, the metadata on the news that I'd like to cover today. I'd like to tell the audience, please make sure that you follow me on all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. On the election night, I will be going live, and I will have a spaces on X for call-ins. I will start at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and cover the election through the night. All right, probably will cover it until about 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30. But from 7 to about 11:30, depends on what happens. All right, maybe it's early, maybe it comes in early and no big deal. I posted on X something very interesting. All right, there is something called the Bible Code, and how the Bible Code basically works is that it takes the letters of the Torah in Hebrew, all right, and finds intersection of certain words to try to understand potential futures that are written in the Bible. All right. So if you don't know what the Bible Code is, search it on Google and it'll give you some information on it. It has a high accuracy. All right. But the accuracy goes up or down depending on certain things that happen with the Bible Code. So you can do equal spacing lettering, right? This is a technique that was known for thousands of years, but could only be computed by humans at a very low level. So basically what you can do is you can take the letters of the Torah and you can find words. The whole Torah is one word. It was originally written with no spaces. So it was one gigantic word. But to understand what the story is, you had to have spaces. So you could find code within the whole one word of Torah looking for certain things, right? That's the easiest method of the Bible Code. The next method is taking equal space lettering. So you can take every other letter and create a grid, or take every third letter and take a grid. So what people did back in the days before computers is they would take paper, or they would take parchment, and they could write the letters of the Torah on each of the parchment sections, and then they could skip it. So you would write all the letters of the Torah in parchment or on paper and in order. All right, so you have this big stack of letters in the order of the Torah, and just skip every other letter. And by skipping every other letter, you would have half of the letters of the Torah because you're skipping, every other letter. Then you can create a grid. You can create, let's say, you can say, okay, I want to take a look at the first book, Genesis, and create a 200 letter by 200 letter grid of this equal space lettering. And it's like a word search. So you can find words within these equal spaced lettering and some sort of grid pattern. The tighter the grid and the tighter the equal space lettering, the more statistically significant it is, the higher probability. And what people have been doing now with computers, you can do fancy things with this. So what you can do is you can now with computers, you can type in words and it will find out, it will crunch and figure out what's the best equal letter spacing and what's the best grid size to find certain word patterns within the grid. Okay. The way Kabbalistically what this means is that the future, the present, and the past are all written in the one word of Torah. That means everything that ever existed, is existing, or will exist is already written. The problem is how do we access it? Now that's Bible code using equal space lettering and grid patterns. There's other more complex things where there's actually, and not many researchers know about this, there are letters with certain symbols for cantillation of reading of the Torah or reading of the Bible. And they are almost like, they can be promoters. I'll call them promoters. So because the code, all right, the Bible is one word and it has, the letters of the alphabet of Hebrew, right? And each letter, when combined, can create a word that creates a concept, right? Well, it's one big string, but there's 22 letters, okay? In our DNA, it's one big string, but 4 letters. It's a 4-base system, not a 22-base system. So what you can do is you can take the code and you can have the code fold it on itself. So if there's a certain cantillation note pattern, let's say on a particular letter, and another cantillation note pattern in another area of the Torah, right? For that letter, you can fold onto it, all right? And by folding onto it, you can do some manipulation of the code and get new insight in future, present, and past in the code, all right? Now, a lot of people are going to say this doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. I don't care what you think. But the thing is that this code, according to Kabbalah, is that all past, present, and future is written in it. There's many different methods to look at this code. Most of the method is equal space lettering with 2D grid pattern. But with computers, you can now do a 3D grid pattern, right? And if you want to get into higher mathematics, you can do a 4 or 5 degree dimensional grid pattern. All right, so you can do a 2D, 2-dimensional grid pattern, which is what most Bible code researchers do. But the computers can do higher dimensional grid patterns. And then you can view it as almost like DNA, where it can fold on itself and code for new concepts or code for something new. All right, the code of the letters of the Torah can fold on itself and match, and that is telling you to look into that region. Sometimes in Kabbalistic deciphering, you take the opposite. So if you see the first letter of the alphabet, you use the last letter of the alphabet. If you see the second letter of the alphabet, use the second from the last letter of the alphabet and flip it. All right. There are about 4 or 5 main deciphering concepts. In addition, there's something called gematria, and gematria is the number. If you take a number of a word with another word that has the same number, they're connected. All right. So if you have a fold and there's an equal number on the first part of the fold with the cantillation and an equal number on the second fold, then there's something to be studied within this region that could be maybe inverted. The letters need to be inverted, or there's equal spacing that needs to be taking place. But the point here is that there's code within this gigantic one word of Torah. The Bible it's a narrative, and we understand the narrative because of just spacing. No, it's just sequence of letters with spaces that create words, that create concepts. But the reality is that the whole Bible is just one word. It was said as one word. There was no spaces. That means that there's an infinite number of stories that are in there. Some of them are buried within a story, kind of a fractal within a fractal. Now, the concept that I'm talking about may go over a lot of people's heads, but there is no doubt that this exists. No doubt whatsoever. All right. So they found, the point that I'm making is that through the two-dimensional Bible code, they found that Trump and assassination and some other words within the code seem, in this grid pattern, seem to suggest that he'll win the election. All right. My understanding, because it's very hard to understand this Bible code researcher because of his accent, but I posted the video on X on what this grid is. All right, and his explanation of it. My understanding of what he's saying, because it's kind of hard to understand it, but it seems to me that Trump is going to win the election, but it's not going to be certified until, it's not going to be actualized or finalized until Friday of November 10th. Was it November 10th? Yeah, November 10th is Friday. All right, because in the Bible code, it states the Hebrew the 8th. I'm sorry, not the 10th. November 8th. November 8th. So basically, the Bible code is saying he'll win, but there is some sort of delay. Now, it doesn't say why. Now, does that mean that maybe there's some legal things going on in the courts and they can't finalize it until after the court? I don't know. Maybe there's some stealing that's going on. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of too close to call for, and then there has to be a recount. Who knows? But it seems in the Bible code that Trump wins, and that it doesn't get finalized until that Friday, which is November 8th. So that means that if you're a Republican, the Bible code seems to be on your side. Now, this probably has about an 80% chance of being accurate. All right. If you look at some of these predictions of the Bible code, now there could be a word in there that's not seen because the grid is created and you have to look for words. So it's the person needs to kind of like be able to see where the word is, and it's equal space within the grid. So you have equal space to create the grid, and then you have equal spacing to find the words in the grid. Now, if you have no spacing within the words within the grid, when you're finding the word, it has the highest probability. The more spaces that you have within the grid that's already created, then the less probable it is. So that's why there's a little bit of a fuzziness to it. There's a high accuracy with no space with the letters within the grid that's created, or the higher the spaces, the less probable it is, but it could still happen. But there seems to be a high accuracy of this method of generating this code. Now, what's interesting with computers and AI is you can create these 2D grids and then have intersections, and you can actually have a three-dimensional, like almost hypercube. You can have like a hypercube of this Bible code to take a look at how these are intersecting. That's a little bit more advanced to try to visualize in your head, but the point here is that there was one word that was spoken, and all of history, past, present, future, is in that one word. And being able to tease it out, that's a big, gigantic fractal. And to be able to tease it out, those patterns within that one word, you have to use high computational analysis to do these equal spacing, lettering, and these grid patterns. But again, like I said, there's other methods where you can have things bold, almost view the code as DNA with a 22-letter system instead of a 4-base system. And there's things that can come out of it. There's fractals that can come out of the actual code. All right. Okay. So we're going to go over the markets now. Right now, the markets are the futures market, because it hasn't opened up yet. The New York trading hasn't opened up yet. Futures for the S&P 500 is 5,728. That's below my 5,800 target for year end. I'm still at the 5,800 to 6,000 target for the S&P 500. Why is it lower? Because there is this election volatility thing. I still think it's going to rally, independent of if it's Trump or Harris that wins. But you have this pre-election volatility in the market. I'm not too worried about it. But I do think that by year end, you're going to be the S&P 500 is going to be trading between 5,800 to 6,000. That's I still have that call there. You know, support levels for the S&P 500 obviously would be the 5,500 mark. That's a very psychological support level, but you also have fib sequences that are at the 530 mark, and you know, so you know, you got to keep in mind that there's pretty strong support levels. There's because of the overlap of the COVID crisis fib sequence and the bull market, 2-year bull market fib sequence. They overlap, and at those overlaps, those are very strong support levels. I'm not too worried about a sell-off. Some people say, "Oh, it's going to be a sell-off, big sell-off, blah blah blah." I don't think that's going to happen. The dollar relative to the euro is trading at 1.09, and yen is trading at 151.7. So yen is, weaker. A few shows ago was at the 148 mark. So it is weakening. The yen's weakening. That's a sign that you can invest in the market. There's not a lot of stress. So that's a good sign. The other sign is the VIX is at 22. This is probably election volatility. So it's a little elevated. There's a little bit of risk building up in the market. And that's part of the reason why the S&P 500 is trading a little lower. And oil is trading right now at 71.81. So for WTI. So that's where the markets are right now. Please make sure you go to my store and help support my work. All right. I do a lot of effort to try to inform you, all right, about the economy, about how to improve your health, about the geopolitical unrest that's going on in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Asia, which I believe is all connected. So please help support my work by purchasing the products that I have on my store. I have ebooks, but I also have great supplements. And I have curated different boxes, the longevity boxes, which is a new brand that I'm coming out with, the anti-aging boxes that have been very popular, but also individual products. And some of those individual products are some of the basics that you need to take every day. These are things that I take every day. I do this health protocol, and this health protocol is basically, you do proper diet, exercise, you filter your water, right? You do balancing exercises, you do stretching, you have to do a little bit of cardio, a little bit of resistance training, proper supplementation, proper sleep, proper mindfulness, some sort of spirituality, and you have to challenge your brain. You have to learn new things, you have to read, write, and talk to people, right? That's really important. And when you couple that all together in a holistic way, you can slow down the aging process, and you can improve your immune system and your endocrine system. And some of the basics that you can get on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, is the vitamin C. Vitamin C is really important for your immune system and for your skin. We're in the cold season. If you're not feeling well because of a cold or whatever, take a double dose of vitamin C throughout the day, and make sure you drink it with filtered water. Another, staple is a multivitamin. You need to take a multivitamin. This is an easy to digest multivitamin because multivitamins are cofactors for enzymatic activity. with proper cofactors for enzymatic activity, your cells will perform better. When your cells perform better, you have better metabolism, you have better immune system, you have better endocrine system. Your bodies work on cells, right? Your cells do, the heavy lifting on things. So you got to feed your cells the proper nutrients, and proper supplementation is really important. So please take a multivitamin every day. This is an easy to digest multivitamin. Go to the store to take a look at the vitamin profile, because there's a lot in here, and take it every day. It's really important to take a multivitamin. But again, this is easy to digest. And another staple that's really important to take is vitamin B complex. Why? Because the first 5 B vitamins help with your mitochondria, and they'll help to boost up your ATP and improve the health of your mitochondria, right? But when you take vitamin B complex, it also helps with your neurons. As we get older, we have to really boost up our neural health. That's central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the vitamin B complex. It will improve your cellular metabolism, but it will also help with your mitochondrial health, boost up your energy levels, and help with your neural health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All the links are in the description of this video and all the videos I do. Please go to my store and help support my work and help support your health. Because if you follow my protocol, you're going to improve your health. All right. So with that said, let's take a look at what Bloomberg has to say about the election.
County by county, state by state analysis. Greg Giroux, ballots and boundaries. Can't say enough about it. Bloomberg. Government. Paul, what do you see?
I'm not sure how he gets that granular. How long does it take you to figure out where all these work? Well, you're right, in experience, because he goes it down to the district level and which districts in play and what that might mean. So the market's trying to figure out kind of what's in play here. We got a little bit of red on the screen here. The S&P's off 8 points, Tom. The Dow's off about 110 points. That's 0.25%. And NASDAQ's off about 0.3%. So
sure, stay with us. We're going to look at hydrocarbons here next, and then Bob Woodward.
Okay, so they're going to a break.
Excuse me, Regina.
Right, they're going to a break. We're going to go to CNN and listen to the professor that's picking Harris.
Each and every day, you make decisions. To make the right decisions, you need more than just data.
We've got the man with the keys here with us tonight. It's the one and only Professor Alan Lichtman. He has correctly predicted 9 of the last 10 elections. And the one he got wrong, 2000, he argues he actually got right, since Al Gore beat George W. Bush in the popular vote. So exactly how does Lichtman make his predictions? Well, he says we should follow his 13 keys to the White House. They include things like incumbency and third-party candidates, state of the economy, and social unrest. If 6 or more go against the party in the White House, its candidate will lose. Fewer than 6, its candidate will win. So what are the keys saying today? Let's bring in Alan Lichtman to talk all about it.
So he creates this multifactorial equation, and it's basically, will that candidate win or lose based on these keys, he calls them. So everything with Trump is chaotic. You can't model a chaotic system. Sorry, you can't. You can try, but a chaotic system breaks down somehow, some way, gives you an unexpected result. Everything about Trump is unexpected. Everything about Trump is chaotic. That's why trying to model this is not going to work. Now, what is interesting is that his model, right? He's trying to do some sort of multivariable regression model that he built up. Who do you think is a little bit more accurate? Do you think the Bible code is more accurate, or do you think this professor is? I suspect that the Bible code is more accurate. Now, it could be our interpretation of what the Bible code is saying is wrong, but we'll see. We'll see. Bible code is saying that Trump's going to win. And not only that, it gets into the details where it's not going to be finalized until Friday. Now, it doesn't say why. Maybe there has to be a recount. Maybe there has to be, legal issues that have to go through the system. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe a state calls that most likely is going to go for Trump, but it's so close that they have to, just double check to make sure that is. Maybe all the certifying takes place at the state level, by Friday and not election night. Maybe that's what the Bible code is saying. I don't know. But it states Trump, the election, that he's going to win. The way I understand from the Bible code interpreter, is that Trump's going to win and that it's not going to be finalized until November 8th. So Friday, even though the election's on the 5th. So let's see what Mr. Regression Analysis has to say.
Kamala Harris, has anything happened in the last few weeks makes you feel more confident in your prediction?
Nothing has changed. And by the way, I didn't say it was right in 2000 because of the popular vote. I said I predicted the right president based on the intent of the voters in Florida, as I proved in my 2001 report to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. But historians will be debating 2000 forever. Nothing has changed. The biggest myth in American politics is the so-called October surprise. I've always
How could nothing have changed when over the weekend they killed a squirrel because of an overreach of the Department of Health? All right, I forget which state it was. And the other issue is that Kamala has not really, it doesn't seem like she's really galvanized any new voters. Now, maybe that's also true with Trump. I don't know. But the thing is that things have changed since the last they talked. I mean, they just killed a squirrel. I mean, anyone that watched John Wick, you don't mess around with the dogs or the cats or whatever, right? In this case, the squirrels. And I'll tell you, I think that the polls, there's something about the polls that's not picking up something that is on the side of Trump.
Before then, and never changed that. In 2016, for example, we had the biggest October surprise. Donald Trump on tape bragging about sexually assaulting women, and a lot of women coming out and saying, yeah, he did that to me. Even Republicans were saying he was finished. I did not change my prediction of a Trump win, which, Laura, you can imagine, did not make me very popular in 90% plus Democratic DC, where I teach at American University.
Well, you usually have a lot of butterflies ahead of an election, even if people getting backlash or otherwise. But you have said that this year, you say you feel like you have I think it was a flock of crows, not just butterflies, in your stomach. What makes you so anxious this time?
Well, two things. Number one, I have never experienced the kind of hate I've had heaped on me this time, which just made me very nervous. I've had hate that's scurrilous, vulgar, threatening, violent. Security of my family's been compromised. We've had to notify the police. We've had to fortify our home. It's been terribly upsetting. The other thing is, I believe democracy is on the line in this election. If I'm wrong, so be it. I think being wrong once is not going to discredit my system, but I think if I'm wrong, then our democracy is in very serious peril. Democracy is precious, but it can be
wait. He's predicting Harris, and he's supposed to be a scholar, and a scholar is supposed to be nonpartisan, right? You're supposed to be able to collect the data and just, interpret the data, try to be as factual as possible, and keep the opinions out of the analysis. Then he's like, well, if I'm wrong, then it's going to be the end of democracy. This clown. All right. John Hogue that I did a recording on, and I'm going to be replaying it tonight, predicts that Trump will win. At least win the election. Let's put it that way. And the Bible code is saying that it looks like that Trump's going to win, but there's going to be something strange about the time between Tuesday and Friday. Something doesn't get finalized until Friday. So I suspect that there's going to be some impropriety that's going on, and then it goes to court. But it's close, and states need to hold the line. Michigan needs to hold the line. Pennsylvania needs to hold the line. Wisconsin needs to hold the line for Trump. And when they do that, he'll be victorious. All right. But the democracy, we're going to lose democracy. We're not going to lose. We're not going to lose democracy if Harris is in office. We're not going to lose democracy if Trump is in office. Why? Our founding fathers had a great idea. 3 pillars of government of equal power. It's called checks and balances. The legislative side of government, the executive, and the judicial. All right. So we're not going to lose our democracy if Harris wins. We're not going to lose our democracy if Trump wins. We don't even have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. The Democrats want a democracy because they want majority rule, codify what the majority wants for that current zeitgeist, and then push that legislation forward in laws and push that in society. The beauty of a constitutional republic is that your rights are protected even if the majority wants to take them away. That is the genius of what our founding fathers actually wrote. And oh, by the way, one of those founding fathers is a relative, all right? That actually certified the Constitution in New Jersey. So I know a little bit about this. Our constitutional republic is more important than this idea of democracy. Because democracy can take away your rights that have been enshrined in a document because mob rules. The whole idea is majority rules in a pure democracy. And that's what the Democrats, when you look at their name, that's what they really want. They want to overturn a constitutional republic. And we're not going to lose our constitutional republic. We're not going to lose our democracy. We don't have a democracy, clown. So we're not going to lose our constitutional republic because we have balance of powers, right? But it's not going to be a smooth road. And they're going to be trying to pass bills that erode your constitutional freedoms. And then what happens is it goes to the Supreme Court and it gets bounced back. Now, the problem comes in is that when you have a White House, a legislative branch, and the judicial branch, all the same party. Now, they're at different frequencies. The legislative makeup during elections happen every 2 years, so that changes. The executive branch changes every 4 years, right? Because of elections, or the chance of changing every 4 years. So you have high frequency changes in the legislative, which is why everything seems to be chaotic. You have a medium 4-year frequency of change in the White House, in the executive branch. And then you have life term in the judicial through Senate confirmation hearings. So you have a low frequency change. So you have high frequency change, medium frequency change, very low frequency change. There is a genius about this concept with a constitutional republic and frequency of change within the different branches of government. Because of this change in frequency, the zeitgeist opinion, because of some sort of mob rule in the legislative branch, could be circumvented if a different party is in the executive branch, through veto. But even if it's the same party, the ruling party and the legislative is the same party ruling the executive, the probability of it going all the way through the judicial branch is lower, because there's some sort of composition between Republican and Democrat. Now, ideally, it would be 50-50, but that's not how it works. In some eras, you have more Democrat, and some eras you have more Republican represented on the bench at the Supreme Court. Well, if you have, let's say, a executive branch and a legislative branch that can push policy that is eroding some of the constitutional rights that are perceived by the other party, and it goes to the Supreme Court, and let's say that Supreme Court ended up having a composition that's the majority composition within the Supreme Court is in line with the majority at the legislative and the executive branch. Let's say, for example, Democrat in all three branches of government are highly represented, and they do things that the other party, the Republican Party, don't like, that they feel is an erosion of the constitutional freedoms. Then what's going to happen is there's going to be a feedback loop for the next election within the legislative branch to push more seats to go Republican. And when that happens, that will change things. So things will be passed into law, and then eventually there is a slow churn that it comes back. A good example of this is this whole Roe v. Wade. It took from 1972 to 2020, I think it was, when it was overturned. 2021, I don't remember what year it was overturned, but you're talking about 30, 30, 40, 50 years, almost 50 years or whatever, of a system churning to a point where it, in my estimation, the Supreme Court ruled right that it's really a state issue, not a federal issue. So it's important to understand that there are these frequencies, these different frequencies: high frequency at the legislative branch, medium frequency at the executive branch, and low frequency of change at the judicial branch, at the Supreme Court level. And this is kind of like a backstop to try to slow things down and not, go to the point where you're eroding the constitutional republic. All right, because there's feedback. There's a feedback. That's important. On top of it, we have a system of government that basically says that you have rights and they cannot be infringed upon. That was what the states agreed upon to ratify the Constitution. So this is a really important point. Harris is not going to destroy our constitutional republic. Trump is not going to destroy our constitutional republic because of the checks and balances and this change in frequency, all right, within the different branches of government. It's not going to just collapse and all that. But what's going to happen is you're going to have laws that are passed that may go against what your party affiliation is, in terms of, the rights of the unborn, in terms of taxes, in terms of, your health, giving more power to the agencies and all this stuff. So, there is an encroachment of loss of liberty, for sure. That's happening. But we're not going to lose our constitutional republic just because Harris is in office. If Harris wins and the Republicans win the executive, or if Harris wins and the Republicans win the legislative branch, Harris is a dead duck. She can't do anything because nothing's going to go through Congress. Nothing's going to happen. Whatever the Republicans try to pass, she's probably going to veto, and it's going to be deadlocked. All right, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm really not. I don't think the world is going to just collapse. I do think that Harris has the potentiality of, raising taxes and giving more power to the agencies. Now, if the Republicans lose the executive branch and Harris wins let me rephrase that. If the Republicans lose the legislative branch and Harris wins the executive branch, then it's very possible that taxes could go way up, and there's this an intrusion of these agencies in our lives. But eventually there's a 2-year feedback within the legislative branch that kind of self-corrects. So it's not going to be the fall of the institutions. It's not going to be the fall of the country. I don't believe that for a second. But it could be harmful for the economy. It can be harmful, with increased taxation, increased indebtedness, and how we execute wars. I don't feel that Harris is as strong as a commander-in-chief as Trump is, nor do I think that Harris gets the respect by the armed services, servicemen and women. So, I think that is really, the focus. We have a constitutional republic. We do not have a democracy. We never had a democracy. We don't want a democracy because democracy in its purest sense means the masses rule. And that if the masses want to take away your property, if the masses want to take away your civil liberties, if the masses want to do harm to you, they can in a democracy. That's how it works. That's not how it works in a constitutional republic. So do you really want to vote Democrat? Or do you want to vote Republican? Because just the word tells you where their heart is. A constitutional republic is more in line with the Republican Party. A constitutional republic is not in line with the Democratic Party. If you think I'm wrong, go back to what FDR was trying to do during the New Deal. FDR wanted to circumvent the Supreme Court. Sound very familiar with the current zeitgeist with the Democratic Party? And push policies that control the economy? They don't believe in free market. They believe in controlled market. So you want to support that? I don't think it's going to be the fall of the republic. I don't think it's going to be the fall of the constitutional republic if Harris gets in. But they're trying to push policies where they're circumventing and trying to weaken the economy, our military, and our constitutional freedoms. Now they're going to spin it. They're going to try to spin it that Trump's going to be eroding our Constitution and all this, the Republican Party is going to erode the constitutional, rights of women, with their crotch rights, and they can just have their abortion any time of the day, 7 days a week, 24/7, no matter what. Now, I do believe that women have rights that are in the Constitution, just as much as males have rights. But the same logic of giving rights to women with the Constitution, because at a time there was a zeitgeist that said that women didn't have as much rights as men. There was a period of time in human history where that was true. Right? That's the way the society worked. That was wrong, but there, it was debated, and women are given rights based on constitutional precepts. But the same thing is with the unborn. What gives women constitutional rights is the same logic for the unborn. Now, if they're willing to take away from the unborn, then isn't it okay to take constitutional freedoms away from females? Of course not. And therefore, the right way to handle this is to have some understanding within this society, a new zeitgeist that delineates the protection of the unborn. And they have constitutional rights for freedom of life. Now, it gets nuanced, you know, if it was incest or if there was rape or blah, blah, blah. But that you're talking about, if that was the case, that would have happened in the first trimester, the abortion. And abortion should be available for the first trimester. But if there is developmental issues in the second or third trimester, and or the health is threatened for the mother, physical well-being is threatened by the mother, you know, for the mother, then, you know, termination of the pregnancy is, you know, in line. But, you know, and the parents, if they, you know, notice that there's some sort of developmental problem with the child as it's in utero, and they want to abort and try again, you know, and you know, another pregnancy, it should be their right, because they're the ones that have to deal with, you know, some of the ramifications of some of these ailments, you know, deformities, and you know, and these genetic issues that can happen during development. But there has to be a point where, if it's not incest, if it's not rape, if it's not, you know, developmental issue, if it's not, you know, threatening the life of the mother, there has to be some point where we protect the unborn. That's just the humanity there. And I think that the concept of constitutional freedoms endowed to humans, to mankind, means that it's being given to males and females and the unborn. Now, it does get a little fuzzy within utero. So I'm not saying ban all abortion. I don't believe that. You know, there needs to be some provision in the first trimester, and it, you know, and need to save the life of the mother in second or third term, or if the parents want to terminate the pregnancy because of developmental issues, then I think that that gives them the option to be able to try again, because not every pregnancy works out. It's just, you know, an emergent property where the development doesn't work out very well. And because of modern technology, they can take it to full term now. Well, in older times where medical care wasn't as good, most likely those pregnancies would have been a natural abortion anyways. So you know, it's nuanced, but it's not taking away the freedom of a woman to with their body. So we have to kind of like really focus on this. All right, the rights for a woman are enshrined in the Constitution, but the rights for life in utero are also enshrined in the Constitution. We're just not willing to admit to it. All right, that was long-winded. Sorry.
Ways destroyed from within, and unfortunately, the trend of this century has been the decline of democracy all over the world, and I'm worried about our country.
See,
I'm so sorry to hear.
Bloomberg's saying the same thing with Woodward. Trump is a danger to democracy. Yeah, danger to their democracy because he represents a constitutional republic. It's a danger to their mob rule. I'll tell you. I'm bouncing around. I'm sorry. I want to hear what the Bloomberg.
the debates. There are lots of signs of two qualities: independence and determination. And I think that that is a good thing. That's not a political judgment. It is what I was able to do in the reporting about what her course of going to president school is. She's got a national security advisor named Phil Gordon, who is really experienced.
Right.
Really goes back a long time into the White House and the State Department and brings a lot of knowledge. Who's Donald Trump's national security advisor? His mouth. He will say whatever he wants, whatever springs in. That is the danger we face.
Bob Woodward, one final question. The dedication for my lifelong friend and reporting partner, Carl Bernstein. Do you guys talk a lot? Like, is there a Bernstein-Woodward take on where this nation is going right now?
Well, we do talk all the time, 3-4 times a week for sure. We saw each other recently. We did an appearance together just a few days ago in New York City. The question here is, who's Trump? Who's Harris? One important credential that Harris has is that Secretary of Defense Austin has a lot of respect for her. I describe new scenes in the book about what Austin has done and how he's been very.
You think that the record for the Biden-Harris administration is good in terms of foreign policy? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me, Bob Woodward? Look at what happened with Ukraine. Look at what happened with the debacle of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Look at the Middle East is in flames, and we have a weakened military, a weakened navy that may not be able to actually do a three-front war with Asia. And we're going to have these experienced people, you know, in the Harris administration. You had experienced people in the Biden administration. You even had experienced people in the Trump administration. You know, the problem is Trump kept on pushing back on the national security state. He thought they were going in the wrong direction. He didn't like it. Meanwhile, you got an empty suit Harris that's going to just nod her head and go, "What would you like, Secretary? You know, what would you like, Secretary? What would you like, national security state? Whatever you want." Because she's in an empty suit. Boneheads.
You personally had to go through and simply predicting and using your keys, the fact that you get all the vitriol and the hatred is mind-boggling to me, even though I'm not politically naive to where we are right now. I'm sorry for you and your family on that point. But for other intellectuals, though, you and a polling legend, Nate Silver, you've been feuding over whose prediction methods are more accurate. The fights, frankly, have gotten pretty heated. And you just mentioned you're taking a break, taking income from all corners. Why do you think the climate, though, has gotten so nasty this time around?
The media.
Donald Trump, and I've never experienced this before Donald Trump. We've never had a candidate before who has dehumanized his political opposition, called them vermin, called them worse than the murderous dictator Kim Jong-un, who machine guns his political opponents, calling out the military against U.S. citizens. Not just criticizing Liz Cheney on her foreign policy, which
he's a New Yorker. Fucking A, give him a break.
but talking about her facing 9 gun barrels shooting at her. We're saying he wouldn't mind if people shot at the so-called fake news, the press. This is what is different. This is what we have never seen before in American politics. He said he'd be a dictator on day one to drill, drill, drill. Well, drilling doesn't take one day, it takes months and years, and no dictator in the history of the world has ever relinquished power after being a dictator on day one. And by the way, I didn't like Trump any better in 2016 when I predicted his win. My predictions are totally nonpartisan. I predicted the two most conservative presidents of our time. My first prediction was of Ronald Reagan in April 1982, when 60% of Americans said he was too old to run again.
He's too biased.
And here we are at the 11th hour practically, and your predictions you say stand, and you're not changing your mind on what you've got from these different keys. I'll be really intrigued to see what happens this coming Tuesday, as frankly the entire globe is as well. Alan Lichtman, always a pleasure to pick your brain. Thank you.
My pleasure, and the keys are the North Star prediction. They don't change.
Donald Trump delivering a dark closing message.
Dark closing message. This is CNN.
The results haven't even been tallied yet. He is already priming supporters with claims the election is being stolen from him, zeroing in on the process in Pennsylvania.
Can you imagine they spend all the... Wake up to who you really are. Don't settle. Can you imagine they spend all this money on machines, and they're going to say, we may take an extra 12 days to determine. And what do you think happens during that 12 days? What do you think happens? These elections have to be decided by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on Tuesday night. Those are crooked people. These are crooked people.
So to be clear, the election law in Pennsylvania mandates that no mail-in ballots can even be processed before the polls close on election day. This led to several days of counting in 2020, which eventually revealed Joe Biden's victory in that state, and of course, in the presidential election overall.
All right,
Trump
so
left office after
remember
losing
what I said with the Bible code. We don't know what this means. This is that it doesn't get finalized until Friday. All right. So it seems as though Trump wins, but it's not finalized until Friday. Is it Pennsylvania that is going to be the lagger? And we're all waiting because of the counting of these mail-in ballots? Who knows? Now, you got to remember, the Bible code was written, thousands and thousands of years ago.
of lawsuits challenging the results and the violence of January 6th that disrupted the counting of the electoral votes. But now, Trump is saying maybe he should have never left.
We had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. We had such a great. So now
he's saying that to be able to get more views on YouTube and on CNN. It's a marketing technique that he's using, because unfortunately, Harris raised more money through Hollywood in the tune of $1 billion, right? And Trump didn't. So the war chest for Harris is larger than the war chest for Trump. It's amazing what Trump has done compared to the disparity of actual donations that were coming in. So of course he uses this as a tactic, because he knows that the mainstream media, he knows that the mainstream media is going to get upset about it.
I mean, every polling booth has hundreds of lawyers standing there. It's all about the lawyers. Everybody's standing lawyers. Nobody should have that.
Vice President Harris now striking a more optimistic tone in her final rallies after calling herself the underdog since she entered the race back in July. Now she's saying this.
We have momentum. It is on our side. Can you feel it?
She has momentum, but she can't feel it. Can't feel a stadium.
Momentum because our campaign is tapping
into the ambitions, the aspirations, and the dreams of the American
This was in
people.
East Lansing, Michigan. Michigan, listen to me. I was born and raised in Michigan. Worked in automotive. I know a lot about manufacturing. Trust me on this. If Michigan doesn't hold the fucking line, we're going to lose the election for Trump. So get in line. Make sure you vote for Trump. So we don't have higher taxes. So we don't have a empty suit chief of the military. So we can actually rebuild our military. All right? It's really important. Under her, we're not going to have a strong military. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How are you going to build the ships when you don't have the shipyards? When you don't have the manufacturing? You got to bring back the manufacturing to have a war footing. You really think that she's that smart to be able to do that? She thinks she's going to control your grocery prices by capping, by doing some sort of cost capping, some sort of price capping. That doesn't sound like a free market to me. Michigan, hold the line. Pennsylvania, hold the line. Or our constitutional republic is at stake. Because we're going to have the erosion of our civil liberties. We're going to lose our country, but it's going to be going through some bumpy waters. She's a communist.
We are optimistic and excited about what we can do together.
Like reparations? Like reparations? Like pushing DEI? Really? Is that the country you want? I mean, we also, we just went through a year of why DEI doesn't work real well. She represents reparations.
The trickiest thing to judge here in the final days. Many of the major battleground and national polls have been showing a dead heat in virtually every state for weeks now, which is why this poll out of Iowa shocked so many people this weekend. The Des Moines Register poll shows Harris up 3 points among likely voters, a 7-point swing toward the vice president in that ruby red state from September. The new margin delivering what sources tell CNN is a gut punch to members of Trump's team.
I just don't understand this Iowa poll. Being close, yeah. But for it to be, within the margin of error, but with Kamala, why? Iowa's a big farm country. You're telling me farmers want Kamala? There's that many farmers that need abortions? You kidding me? Something's not right there. Is there something weird about the polling that's not picking up some sort of silent majority for Trump? Maybe. Is this just, some sort of bias polling to try to give some momentum in the media for Harris? Maybe. But I have a hard time believing that Iowa's going to go Harris. You kidding me? You kidding me? What did they get? They gave the ballots to the cows?
All Trump has to say about the poll.
So the polls, I'm telling you, you can make those suckers sing. You get the right pollster, you can do, and you really do inflict damage. When you do like this person from Iowa, it's called suppression. They suppress, and it's actually should be illegal because it's in many ways it's worse than the written word, which these guys do quite well, actually.
That same Iowa poll correctly predicted Trump's victories in the state in the past 2 elections within 2.5 points of the final margin of victory. Joining us now to discuss all of this, Jackie Kucinich. She's watching Bitchute for the Boston Globe. Jackie, good morning.
Good morning.
Wonderful to see you.
Boston Globe, another liberal.
So let's talk about where this race stands here in the final stretch. I mean, you can see there Trump already running this strategy, trying to cast doubt on the results. The Harris team feeling, and when I talk to my Democratic sources, they are feeling cautiously optimistic about where the momentum is. There had been this period where it felt like the race was swinging back towards Trump's direction. I think the big question, Is it coming back toward Harris here in the final days? Well, and you have the New York Times poll this morning that says, yes, that those late breaking voters, of which there are very few, are breaking. They're seeing them break for Harris. Now, will it be enough? And that is the open question. But even listening to those messages, it's really interesting. It's hard to see who the insurgent candidate is at this point. Who's the incumbent? Who's the challenger? Because it really does sound flipped right now, particularly how the former president is talking. Listen, he has been sowing discontent about this election for a couple months now. And look at the front page of the papers. Everything's about trying to safeguard the vote because these election officials are really concerned about this. I mean, we reported it, you know, in the Post and USA Today. I'm sure the Times has done it as well. Yeah. And what you're hearing, his comments about having to have the vote counted on election night, that's just, I mean, election officials have been out for months saying that's not going to happen, and not because anything bad is happening. It's because good things are happening. It's because in these states where the margins are so thin, every vote has to be counted, and that's going to take time.
Ever feel like your mind could use a refresh? Before you reach for another supplement, here's something you might want to know, because what your brain really needs to feel sharp might be simpler.
All right, let's go back. What's going on in the news? All right, this is Fox Business.
Welcome back. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are making their final pitches to voters today with just one day until Election Day. Trump is holding campaign rallies in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan, while Harris is focusing on
hold the line, Michigan.
Last day on the campaign trail. Two new national polls released yesterday showed Trump and Harris in a very tight race. An ABC News Ipsos poll says that Harris leads Trump 49 to 46% with a 2% margin of error, while an NBC News poll finds that Trump and Harris are tied at 49%. Joining me now is former Arkansas governor, former presidential candidate, and Trump surrogate, Mike Huckabee. Governor, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be with you, Maria. Just a few more hours and this starts being over. Now, I think most Americans will be glad.
Are you buying these polls, Governor? I mean, I can't believe how tight these polls are. And they tightened even further if you look at the betting markets overnight.
I really don't buy it. I mean, there was one that came out over the weekend in Iowa, and it showed that Kamala Harris had erased a 10-point lead by Donald Trump, and she was now 3 ahead. Let me tell you why there's no credibility to that. If that poll were real, both candidates would be going to Iowa this week. They're not. They didn't go over the weekend. They're not going today. They're not going tomorrow. And the reason is because their own poll showed them that that state is not in play. Where they're focused is where you see this race coming down to. And I'd say more than anything, it's Pennsylvania. And frankly,
that's a pretty smart idea. I mean, obviously he knows about politics, right? Because he's ran as governor and whatnot. But I think he also he was running as a primary candidate for the Republican presidency, I believe. But the key here is that, you know, through his experience, he just said something genius that I wasn't thinking. If it's in play, why don't you go there and campaign? And, you know, near the very end, because it's not in play. Bias polling. It's he just said it's genius. Genius.
Be decided by the Electoral College. But what does matter is whether or not there's enthusiasm for either candidate. I don't see enthusiasm so much for Kamala Harris. I see enthusiasm against Donald Trump. That's the only reason she's got any momentum at all. And it's just because some people are stupid enough to believe that all of the Trump supporters are garbage, Nazis, fascists, un-American, all the labels that have been thrown. But I'm going to tell you what that's done. It's also motivated the Trump voters to say, you know,
it's the party of Trump. It's the Republican Party that's going to save the squirrels, not the Democrats, because the Democrats want to have more agency control over your life and euthanize your squirrels. Trump's not going to do that. So please go to your polls tomorrow and make sure you vote for Trump, especially if you're from Michigan, because there's a lot of squirrels in Michigan.
Like being called un-American, fascist, racist, homophobe, transphobe. and every other name, including garbage. So I think I'll just show up and vote for Trump and mess up the minds of the other side.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm wondering if we're going to know on election night, because this whole idea of waiting 2, 3, 4 days a week until we know who the president is really frustrating. So let's talk about some closings and what races you're going to be focused on. 7 o'clock, the polls close in Georgia and Virginia. 7:30, North Carolina and Ohio. You got 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Florida closes, Michigan closes, Pennsylvania closes, Texas closes. That's going to be a big hour, the 8 p.m. hour. At 9 p.m., Arizona closes. Then you've got Nebraska, New York, Wisconsin closing then as well. And then at 10 o'clock at night, you got Nevada closing. What are you going to be watching most closely on election night? And do you think we're going to know on election night who won?
For the ones that don't know, I'm doing a live broadcast starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow. So please make sure you join, and I have an open spaces for taking questions, and it will be all recorded and everything, and and disseminated on all my channels. But I'm going to be doing a live show. I'm going to do a live show tomorrow at 7 p.m. New York time, and I will be taking calls in what you're seeing at the polls, what your opinion is going to be, how you think that this is all going to pan out. And I'll, if you're Republican or Democrat and you want to voice your opinion, please do. All right. But just keep it to the election and not through the past crisis, because I don't want the censorship. But the key here is that I will be doing a live show. So make sure you watch me watching them. And maybe they'll be watching us.
I certainly hope so. I think it's a disgrace that the elections can't be decided on election night. The only reason it can't is because you have election officials in these states that just haven't created efficiency. Florida is a great example. Back in 2000, their election process was a total mess. We all remember the Bush-Gore debacle, but they cleaned it up. They've got one of the most efficient election processes, covers 2 different time zones. It's a huge state, gotten even bigger, and they'll have their election results in before people go to bed. If they can do it, anybody can do it, and every other state ought to look to Florida as the model.
Yeah, well, look, we've got so much mudslinging in this, the 11th hour here. President Biden insulted Trump supporters again during a campaign stop in Pennsylvania this weekend. Watch this.
I just granted, I used to have a little trouble going down the plot once in a while. But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack. Just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
It's just unbelievable, Governor. 2 assassination attempts and this, rhetoric, these slurs keep on coming.
Joe is like a chip.
Hey guys, JD Vance here. I'm in Arizona, and if you could contribute $5, $25, anything, this is the critical moment of the.
Joe is like a jack-in-the-box that jumps up and scares little kids. And he needs to be put back in the box, and they need to put duct tape over the top so he doesn't pop up again. It's got to be a huge embarrassment to Kamala Harris. But here's the real issue. Kamala Harris has already said her policies will be the same as this guy's. Do we really want 4 more years of this? I don't think so. So if people believe there's a better way to have this country go, and about 75% say we're on the wrong track, then voting for Kamala Harris is like voting to have your own toes cut off by the person doing your pedicure. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Liz Peek, jump in.
Good morning, Governor. Thanks for joining us. I'm concerned that men are absolutely essential to showing up for this election. If Trump's going to win, it's got to be because men come out in the numbers that they're polling, which is where he has about a 7 or 8 point advantage with men. My concern is that more women vote than men. How can they turn that around, or are they turning it around?
Liz, I think they are, and it's part of it just from what we've listened to. Men don't like to be insulted. They don't like to be told that they're idiots and they're stupid and they just aren't as smart as some of the elites, and especially working class men. who stand on heavy, lift heavy things and stand on concrete floors all day, come home bone tired, and you've got a presidential candidate who basically treats them with contempt. I think there are a lot of people who say, enough of this. I work hard. And you're going to pay off the student loans of people who are doctors and lawyers with the money that I've made being a plumber, an electrician, or a finished carpenter. No, thank you. People really do understand the disaster of that.
Governor, what do you make of this Iowa poll? Newt Gingrich is saying that he's not buying it, but Iowa, this latest Iowa poll in the 11th hour shows Harris winning here after all the momentum that Trump has had in these final couple of months.
I've talked to several of my friends in Iowa, not one of them do anything other than laugh out loud at that poll. They think it's ridiculous. And as I said before, if it were real, you'd see at least one of these candidates, if not both of them, changing their schedules and getting over to Iowa, because that would be a place they'd have to go. Neither of them are scheduling it.
Good point. Cheryl, jump in.
Well, I think in this final day before Election Day, Governor, the simple question now is, what do you think the best closing argument is out there for former President Trump to close women and to get them to vote for him tomorrow?
Less taxes.
Cheryl, it really comes down to, are you safe in your community? Are you safe in your home? And can you afford the groceries on your table? And can you afford the gas in your car? And the answer is no. And if women vote only for abortion, which frankly doesn't make sense because abortion is now in the hands of the states. People can get an abortion if they want to. I would to God that they wouldn't. Because I believe every life has value and worth. But if that's the only reason that people vote is so women can kill their babies at will, then we've got a really sick culture going on. So I think the closing message for Donald Trump to women is, this is about you. It's not about me.
I'm gonna go into like a Kabbalistic sense here. All right. And I should do a video going into detail about this, probably a PowerPoint one, because this is pretty complex. But remember what I said about life in fractals, all right? Everything in the world has a fractal. The way we develop is a fractal. The way the universe evolved is a fractal. Kabbalah is a fractal. And so is the story of the, 7 days of creation is a fractal, And it's of eras. The day is an era. It means an era, okay? Now, as we progress through the 6th era, it is tied to Yisod, which is foundation, which is an attribute of the Sephirah that's dealing with procreation and sexuality. All right, and after we get through this era, we go into Malchut. And that era of Malchut is the Messianic era, the 7,000th year. All right, we're going into the 7,000th year. So, so the whole point here is that we're in Yisod, and there's a lot of turmoil in the attribute of the Sephirah dealing with procreation and dealing with sexuality. And near the end of that era transitions into the Messianic era. This is all Kabbalistic. There's nothing, I'm not making this up. You can just look it up, and this has been around for a long time, all right? Thousands of years, right? This era of Yisod, you can see playing out in the media, where there is the gender dysphoria, so sexuality is confused. All right, there's a lot of turmoil going on. The idea of gender roles in society, male and female, should males perform in female sports, participate in female sports, and vice versa. There's a confusion that's taking place here. So this charge of procreation, the idea of getting rid of your child versus another group that's saying to have your child, so when you have an attribute that is polarized, an attribute of the Sephirah that's polarized, it creates an energy force, and that polarization is positive, negative. All right, or good, bad, or save a life, kill a life. Someone that is one karyotype, let's say male or female, and there is this other side that wants to reverse it. So there's this tension that's taking place in the attribute of the Sephiroth in Yisod. It gets more and more intense with more killing of the unborn, with more gender dysphoria, with more issues with sexuality and procreation. And then all of a sudden, there's a societal collapse or a societal shift, a zeitgeist, a new zeitgeist that shifts right into the Messianic era. And we're seeing this playing out in it. I'll do a video that goes into more detail about this concept, that each of the Sephiroth has a mapping to the days of creation that tie into actually eons, ties into epochs of human history. And it's a fractal. So you have days of creation, 7 days of creation, right? But you also have, every 7th day is a day of rest. Well, you also have, rest at, the 7th year. You also have rest in the 49th year, right? You also have so you have weekly rest, there is an annual rest, there's there are year rests, there are jubilees, there's also cosmic rest. All right, so you can have, and there's rest of 1,000 years. So they're fractals of each other. All right. Days of the creation with a day of rest also translates into a fractal to 1,000-year rest, which is the Messianic era. All right. Now, what's interesting is that, people would say, well, if you have 1,000 years of rest and you don't do anything, how's things made and all that? We may have a society that's like R2D2, where everything is done for you. And that's what the Kabbalists are predicting here, is that there are going to be non-souls doing things for the people that have souls. So you're seeing this tension within Yisod, with this procreation sexuality in society, all around the world. And it's going to get worse and worse until there is a societal collapse. And then all of a sudden, the Messianic age gets booted in. You go right out of Yisod and you go into Malchut, the year of the Messianic era. The transition into really the Messianic era. But there's some details that I need to go over in the PowerPoint. But that's the crux of it. And you're seeing it playing out in the media. But the thing is that very few people can see these things. I'm not the only one that sees this, but there are very few people that see it in this lens. And like I said, the ultra-liberal, if you pay attention to what I've been saying for a year, the ultra-liberals' tail, they're going to eat their own tail. And that the pendulum from ultra-liberalism is going to swing to conservatism because of this, with the DEI and the gender dysphoria and the destruction of this idea of, no affinity to God, country, or family. The Democratic Party isn't for family. They're not for family. They want families to be fractured, for sure. They're not for country, because they want a one world government. And they don't have a strong affinity to God or spirituality. And so when you have these three things, it's no wonder that Yisod is in such turmoil right now in the age that we live in. And It's going to get worse, but what's going to happen is that conservatism is going to boil up to the surface and let in the end. It's this the sun is setting on Yisod. You know, I'll try to be poetic here. The earth always has a sunset and a sunrise, no matter where you are in the world. Okay? So there's going to be this point where you have a sun setting of Yisod and the sun rising of Malchut, because of this destruction that's going on with God, family, and country. Because of this energy problem that's in Yisod.
Donald Trump, it's about you. It's about whether your kids can play in the yard without fear of being the victim of a crime by somebody who's come across the border illegally. It's about whether you can afford to send them to camp or college. It's about whether you can live your life with a level of freedom and economic capacity. And you can't do it if Kamala Harris gets in, because you've lived under the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris policies for 4 years, and it's been a real mess for you. So why inflict that pain on yourself for 4 more years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Governor, what's the most important policy you'd like to see change should Trump return to the White House? Is it the border?
The new Bearskin Hoodie 4.0 claims to be the most advanced, waterproof tactical hoodie ever made. But the real part?
I mean, that's a big part of it. But Marie, I think the bigger issue is just getting back to where America is a country that treats everybody the same, that you don't use the alphabet agencies of Washington, D.C. to go after your political enemies, and you punish the people that disagree with you, and you tell women who go to school board meetings to protect their children that they're going to be put on the terror watch list. This insanity has got to stop, and we need to quit doing things that defy common sense, like pushing the idea of mutilating children when they're 12 and 13 years old, and don't even let them have a tattoo. You don't let them get beer, or you don't let them buy tobacco, but you let them change their bodies irreversibly. This isn't about progressive. This is about being stupid, and we need to quit being stupid.
Matt, this is really, really distressing when you take a look at the impact of these policies on American citizens. And if you just ask that question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I think most people would say no, given the level of inflation.
There's no way somebody can say, yeah, I'm really better off. Everything is better. My groceries are cheaper. I can afford gas. I can go places. Right. Airline tickets are better. Hotels. There's nothing that is actually better. So if that's the case, voting for Kamala Harris is truly one of the most, I guess, inexplicable things I can think of. Why would you do that? If you don't like Donald Trump's personality, okay, that's fine. But I like his candor. I like the fact that there's a transparency there that is refreshingly apolitical. He says what he thinks. You may not like it, but you don't have to have the Kamala Harris issue, which is one state you tell people you're pro-Israel, in another you tell them you're pro-Palestinian. So what you have is somebody who is a candidate who changes positions more than Cher changes costumes during a concert. I just think that there's something incredibly disingenuous about that, and you can't trust a person who does it.
So today, Nikki Haley is out with an op-ed in the Journal, Governor, and it says, look, Trump may not be perfect, but he's the better choice. Do you think Trump needs to go after the Nikki Haley supporters aggressively in these final hours?
Well, I think he needs to go after everybody, but he needs to keep reminding them that they may not like his personality. He can be abrasive. You know, I tell people he's like a guy on a construction site in Queens. That's who he is. I find it kind of refreshing that he's just so honest about what he's thinking. But I do think that it's a great opportunity for him to remind people that they're not electing, as Franklin Graham so brilliantly said, you're not electing somebody to be your Valentine. You're electing them to manage the country and to scare off foreign enemies and to lead this country to economic prosperity for everybody, no matter their color, no matter their gender, no matter their geographical location, to make America great again. And gee, that's a great phrase. Maybe he should use that. I don't know. He'll be a winner.
All right, Governor. Great to see you this morning, Governor. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Trump. Trump news on Bloomberg. But before that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work. I give you a unique insight about economics, the political scene, international affairs, and also your health. All right. So a great way to improve your skin, improve your bones, improve your joints is to take the collagen peptides that I have. There's a big scooper in here. You take it each day. You can mix it, in a smoothie, or take it with water, or some people mix it with milk. Other people, will mix it with their food. But how I do it is I mix it with hummus. All right. But there's other people that just take it with a smoothie or some sort of, shake drink or whatever. It has a very impressive lipid profile. All right. Or not lipid profile. I'm sorry. Amino acid profile. And the collagen here is very high quality. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen, improve your bones, improve your joints, improve your skin. I have also a skincare anti-aging box, beginners and advanced, that has the collagen in it, and you get a few other supplements that help to improve your skin, because there's a method to really boost your skin health. But collagen also improves the health of your hair and of your nails. So please go to my store and get the collagen. We need this as we get older. So please help support my work and help support your health by getting the collagen. In addition, I have partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these all-natural deodorants. We have it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and also in citrus. These have no aluminum in it, no baking soda. They're made from essential oils made in the Himalayas, and it's a dual-purpose product. You use it as a deodorant every day, but it also helps to detoxify your body because of the ingredients that's in here. So please go to my store, get the citrus or the peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. It's for males and females. Get a couple bars for your household and help support your health and help support my work. And olive leaf extract, really important. It's a dual purpose product. You should be taking this every day. Why? Because it'll help to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. How does it work, Dr. Paul Cottrell? It works like this. Olive leaf extract will lower your LDL and increase your HDL levels. So that means that you're improving your lipid profile, and that means you're controlling your total cholesterol. All right. By doing that, you're improving your cardiovascular health because you're reducing the chances of having oxidized LDL, which builds up plaque. So you're reducing the chances of plaque buildup. In addition, olive leaf extract helps with the immune system by bringing down inflammation. So it's a dual purpose product. It's a great way to, take a supplement that's doing two things for you, boosting up your immune system and helping with your cardiovascular system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Take it every day and improve your health. All right. Bloomberg is in commercial. So let's go to Michael Moore, because he's from Michigan.
We cannot wake up the morning after election day wishing we had done more. The truth is, a donation at this stage of the race
There are just 2 days remaining until what could be the most consequential election of our lifetimes. And NBC News is out with its final poll, which shows both Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump tied at 49% nationally. But it features Harris leading among voters on the key issues of abortion, bringing the country together, and looking out for the middle class. Notably, voters are also demonstrating more faith in Harris than Trump.
Think about that for a second. If you want to kill your kid, go vote for Harris. But they're saying that to vote for Harris, it'll be better for the economy, better for the working person. you're going to have lower taxes. The middle class is going to have lower taxes. That means you'll have more money to spend. In addition, he's going to drill, baby, drill. That means your energy costs are going to go down. That means the heating of your home is going to go down. That means your gasoline prices are going to go down. That means that the input cost for making goods is going to go down. So Trump's going to bring down inflation by drilling. Drill, baby, drill. All right? Do you think Harris is doing that? No. Trump is better for the economy. The working person. No, the working person needs to wake up and stop voting Democrat, because you've been voting in a block because your Teamster leader is telling you to vote that way because they're getting paid by the Democratic Party. All right? Wake up. Women out there, they're crotch right voters. They're one issue voters. You know what? It's a state issue, not a federal issue. Harris can't write a executive order saying she's going to ban, any prevention of abortion. She can't do that. She doesn't have the power because it's at the state level. And the same thing with Trump. Trump can't just, write an executive order and say he's going to say no abortions in the United States of America. He can't do that because it's a state issue. And Michigan, which needs to hold the line for Trump, your abortion issue has already been solved. You can have it. So crotch right women that are voting for Harris because they're one party, they're a one issue voter, wake up. Wake up. You got to look at this holistically. And there will be a time when we get out of Yesod and go into Malchut that the people that actually aborted their baby, right? That aborted their baby because of economic issues, not some other tangential issue, all right? But because of economic issue is murdering. But we're at a zeitgeist where we're not going to consider it that way. But there's going to be a new zeitgeist in Malchut, in the age of Malchut, where what you did is actually murder.
Our democracy. And this idea is central to Harris's final pitch to voters in these final days before the election. Here's what she told reporters just today in Michigan.
The systems that are in place for this election in 2024 have integrity. They are good systems, and the vote of the people will determine the outcome of this election, and everyone must know that their vote is their power to determine the outcome of the election. And
the vote of the people. No. Here's the issue when it comes to the election here, Harris. You got to make sure that the ones that are voting are legal voters, that they can vote legally, not just the people. Because there's a lot of people in the United States, especially illegals. All right? There's a lot of people. But if you're a legal voter, all right, you could be an American citizen and didn't do the process right, and you aren't registered to vote in that state, especially if you moved or whatever. All right? So legal voting, and everyone's counted. That is a legal vote once, not twice, not 10 times, not 30 times, not 40 times, not 70 times. Once. So a legal vote and one vote for that legal vote, not multiple votes for that voter ID. All right? And then making sure that everyone's vote that's legal to vote is counted. Not thrown away, not double counted. And not 4 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, ballots that are coming in only for Biden. Why would she focus on Michigan unless there was a lot of impropriety going on in Wayne County? Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
It does matter.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's contempt for
Architects. Worn when it counts. Outerwear for mountain athletes. Architects.
Echo came out with a new type of microscope. Interesting.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's contempt for democracy was on full display during a rally in Pennsylvania earlier today. Again, here is just a part of his chilling message.
They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing. We had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much. I don't mind.
Now, the Trump campaign released a statement after those remarks, which feel more like gaslighting than anything else, referring to the media. They write, quote, he was actually looking out for their welfare far more than his own. Now, Trump's consistently violent rhetoric lays bare a crucial difference between our two political parties, if you want to call them that. In a new piece, columnist Ezra Klein wrote in the New York Times, we're used to elections pitting Democrats against Republicans. This election pits guardians against counter-revolutionaries. Harris surrogates and supporters are united not by shared policy goals, but by a shared defense of American institutions. That's the core reason that Harris's coalition is noticeably disparate among groups of people. As her running mate Tim Walz brags, we got Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift on the same ticket. Now, leaving Taylor Swift out for a moment, what on earth do Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney have in common besides both being Americans who simply want democracy here to survive? Meanwhile, the Trump coalition is united by a shared distrust and desire to take control of American institutions. Klein writes, the Trumpist coalition isn't conservative at all. It's counter-revolutionary. It believes a leftist revolution has corrupted American institutions, and a counter-revolution, which may even require violence, is necessary. That's why the Trump side has elevated people like Elon Musk, who has been using his social media platform and Trump rallies to peddle anti-immigrant election voter fraud conspiracies. And RFK Jr., who built his entire failed presidential campaign around a whole host of conspiracies.
You know what's amazing with
including
MSNBC? All right, and this clown that I never watched, but Ali Velshi is also on this channel, who I met at the Harvard Club when he was promoting his book about his family. You know, the reality of the situation here is that they're always demonizing Trump and his supporters, but yet they don't really shine the light that if Trump wins, think about what's going to happen. There's going to be a BLM movement, anti-Trump, anti-Israel movement where they're burning down the town if Trump wins, because the Democratic Party is going to have protests. That's what's going to happen. All right. Now, when Harris wins, the probability of the town's going to be burned down and all that is real low, because that's not what Republicans do. All right. But that's what the crazy ultra liberals do. I mean, just look at what has happened in recent history in the United States. I mean, who's really the rioters? It's more probable that the rioters are going to be the actual Democrats whining that Trump wins. Right? But let's just say Trump loses. What's going to happen is that there's going to be individuals, a big part of the population, if there's evidence to suggest impropriety with the voting count, people are going to be vocal about it. And what's going to happen is things will start to calm down, and you'll start to see, depending on what happens in the legislative branch. Now, if the Republicans can control the legislative branch, or at least slow it down because they control one chamber of the legislative branch, then the policies of Harris aren't really going to hurt the American family too much. If the Democrats control the legislative branch, then there's going to be more concern about the economy, and it's probably going to be more vocal, especially in the alt media world. Now, there's going to be a ramp up of additional conflict in the Middle East. And so what that's going to cause is this fraction within the Democratic Party, where they're going to start being pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli rhetoric. And Harris is going to be in a pickle between supporting Israel or supporting our base. And the Republicans are going to be supporting Israel. Well, Harris is going to try to be supporting both sides in some way, but she's going to be caught in a pickle. What's going to happen is her own party is going to be protesting against her. That's how I think this is going to play out. But they never say that. They don't go into it's always the Trump supporters that are going to, cause havoc. I'll tell you, we are literally living through the polarization of Yesod right here. Right here. You're seeing it.
Is about vaccines and antidepressants. And in today's Republican Party, you don't get to keep your seat at the table unless you are willing to defend the biggest conspiracy of them all.
Do you think it's okay to spread false rumors about fraud and undermine the integrity of the election, regardless of what happens?
The liberal media has done a better job of still spreading misinformation.
Oh, come on, Senator. You believe that the election will be free and fair. So does that mean that you are confident that if Donald Trump loses, I know you think he's going to win.
Is the election going to be free and fair? We don't know, because we don't know what the Dominion Code is. It's never been audited. We don't know what it does. Election officials and auditors and right before the election, they do a test ballot run. So they fill out a bunch of ballots and they put it in the machine and it spits out an answer. They know what they put in. It spits out the answer, but that's pre-election. How do you know that the code doesn't have a timer? And it knows when the election starts. How does it know? How do you know that it doesn't start flipping at a certain time? So just because you did a test run doesn't mean that the code is going to behave that way throughout all of the election night. It could be timed. It could be a timer that changes it. Or this horizontal control that I was talking about several videos ago, where it can project. It's projecting the counts that are coming in. Is it way above for Trump? Well, then flip a few votes, flip some to make it more for Harris. All right? You don't know if it's doing horizontal control and doing an adjustment. You don't know, because they don't let you look at the code. No one knows. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. It gets even worse though. Now, okay, so you have some municipalities that have a paper ballot only. Not that many. You have some, like the municipality I'm in, where you have a paper ballot, you bubble it in, and then you feed it electronically in a scanner, and it counts. So there's a paper trail of the machine. So the machine count in the right and the paper. Now, no one's really doing an audit, right? No one's really like looking at the paper ballots and making sure that the receipt on the machines in that voting district match. They're just saying what the machine counted. Now, there is a paper trail if you want to audit it, which is good. There are other municipalities that don't have a paper trail. It's all screen. And when you click the screen, you think you're voting for Trump. The machine may count that vote for Trump. It may not. And there's no paper trail to do an audit to make sure that the paper matches the machine because it's only screen related. That's a problem. Now, I've only seen one of these machines, I think once, and it was in Michigan, all right, years ago. It was a screen type thing. And I don't remember having a paper ballot. It was a screen thing. So there's different regions of the country have different mechanisms of how this vote is counted. The paper ballot only, and those paper ballots are counted. A paper ballot that's scanned, and there's a paper trail, but not audited unless someone tells them to audit it, like if it's really close. But it's not randomly audited. And then the screen only, which no one knows what's going on in the black box. Because how do you verify? Because you do the test. Let's say you just have a screen version of the voting booth. You have a test where it's just this only screen related. You do the test and you do, let's say 10 votes, 5 for Harris, 5 for Trump, right? And you do this 5 times. You click Trump, right? And you register the vote, and you do that 5 times, and you do the same thing for Harris 5 times. So when the printout comes out with the count, it should be 5 for Harris and 5 for Trump. But that's pre-election when you do the test work. How do you know the code doesn't change when election time happens? Because the code, the behavior of the machine, could be programmed to change during election night. All right. So if you don't have some sort of receipt to prove what the machine is counting, a paper receipt, not a printout from the machine, right? Because the machine could be manipulating. You need to have some sort of paper that the actual voter touched before it was registered in the machine. When you have that, then you have an audit trail. All right. We don't audit. It's just votes are certified. People need to wake up to this concept. These are 2 different words. Certified means some election official looked at the count and they're certifying that it's legit. But they didn't audit to prove that that certification is legit. 2 different concepts. And you need to audit the fucking code, and you need to have a paper trail to be able to do some sort of statistical audit to make sure that there's not impropriety. In addition, you need to do an audit of voters that voted that shouldn't be voting, that are voting illegally. So certification of a vote and an audit of a vote and of its voter roll are 2 different things that are not happening. That's the issue. What's in the fucking code? And what is happening with the machines that are either scanned or only clicked, screen clicked with no paper ballot? Audit. Randomly audit. And when you do that, you'll start seeing improprieties. And so start Stop being just, a sock puppet media saying, well, it was certified. Certified. Yeah, it was certified. Was it audited? What's in the code? What's in the code?
Play this out. If he loses, then he will concede.
I'm confident that he's going to win, but that ain't question. And yes, I do believe that we will have a fair election. We will honor the results and we will celebrate the 47th president being Donald Trump.
Imagine, just for a second, imagine how different things would be if the power players within the Republican Party cared less about winning and actually more about America. Imagine if the GOP had turned Never Trump after the Access Hollywood tape, after the January 6th insurrection, after
Imagine if we didn't have a national security state that made a fake dossier, had the CIA and the FBI go after Trump illegally, hide it, not really fully divulging to the judge what they were really doing. And this operation was rubber stamped by Obama. What if we really cared about the issues and we didn't have the national security state going after someone that's an anti-globalist? What if? What if? This is so upsetting. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Improve your health and help support my work by purchasing the structural nano silver soaps that I have. I have 5 different varieties. This one happens to be lemongrass, but I also have 4 other varieties. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps. They're very high quality. Get a couple bars for your household. They'll neutralize pathogens, and it's very good for your skin. Pancreatic health is really important, especially when you get older. Get the digestive enzyme complex. It'll help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So it's reducing that load on your pancreas. In addition, it will help to absorb nutrients, because these enzymes are breaking down your food particles. And if you work out, or if you're an athlete, taking the digestive enzyme complex will help with your recovery from your workout. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. These enzymes also can break up glycoproteins, really important in the 2020 crisis. And oh, by the way, it also has bromelain, which will help to break up clots because it's fibrinolytic. So this is a dual purpose product. It'll reduce clot formation. In addition, it helps to break up glycoproteins. That's really important, especially if you have some sort of genetic integration that took place post-2020. And this will help digest carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Very important, especially when you get older. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex.
At the Draconian Project 2025. Instead, the party went all in on their winning horse, endorsing racism, xenophobia, sexism, endorsing violent rhetoric and acts of violence, endorsing a backsliding of our democracy, and doing.
Nancy Pelosi, Waters, and Schumer all promoted violence against Republicans, especially during the confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court. Think about it. Let that set in. Who's the party of peace and prosperity? And who's the party of the BLM movement?
Everything to help Trump get another 4 years in power, enabling Trumpism to seep even deeper into the pores of America and live on far beyond 2024. Joining me now is Michael Moore, Academy Award-winning filmmaker and host of the Michael Moore podcast. Michael, it's great to have you back on the show. You know, I don't want to go back to 2016, but you obviously predicted at the time that Trump would win. Last month, you wrote Trump is toast. You know, we're almost 48 hours out from perhaps seeing our first results, but do you stand behind that today?
Oh, even more so. I just keep wondering the gift that the Trump campaign keeps giving us. I don't think they realize, I don't think they really are in touch with where the majority of Americans are at. The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want the threat of violence. We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where it ends. We go to vote. Who wins, wins.
Trump needs to get in, and he needs to look at the national security state, needs to truncate it, make it more efficient, and investigate anyone that did election fraud in 2016 or election interference in 2016 or in 2020. And I'm willing to bet that when you actually look at it, when you actually investigate it, you're going to see that the national security state was going after Trump, and they sided with the Democratic Party. And the mainstream media is tied to the national security state through the Smith Modernization Act. And when you investigate it, you're going to be able to see a direct line of command and control from the national security state through the agencies on the mainstream media. And this plays out with how they were censoring on social platforms like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube during the crisis in 2020. We need to investigate it. And anyone that was involved needs to be prosecuted. And oh, by the way, it was the Democratic Party under Obama that shift the gain of function research over to a nice place over in China.
Half the time I've been very happy with who's won, and the other half of the time I haven't been. And we move on with our lives. The fact that the way that what you just played here, I hadn't heard Trump out of those words. I'd heard somebody say that he said that, but to hear him say that about they can shoot through the media, the assassins, go ahead and fire, and all those other things you just played. It's like they really believe that the average normal American wants to hear that. They actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents.
The reality is that we have laws. Michael Moore, we have laws, we have borders, and they're breaking it. They're coming over illegally. They're illegal immigrants. They're illegal aliens, and they need to go back home because they're illegal. So stop placating. Stop doing this whole globalist thing. He's promoting the Detroit Lions, because he's from Michigan. All right, I was born and raised in Michigan. The thing is, Michigan got fucked over because of NAFTA. All right, and decimated the tool and die industry. A lot of people on Wall Street made a lot of money on that, promoting globalism and the gigantic sucking sound that Ross Perot was predicting, which happened. All right, let's face it, the Democratic Party has fucked over the American worker and has tried to control the union bosses to get their union members to vote in a block. Now, unfortunately, the union members typically follow along like sheep, just like how women just follow along for crotch rights and just be a block voter for the Democratic Party. And it's been like that for decades. This is not a modern phenomenon. This is a decade This is the multiple decade phenomena. And we have lost American prowess when it comes to manufacturing and our ability for a war footing. A vote for Harris is not a vote for Michigan. A vote for Harris is a destruction of the manufacturing prowess. You think the Green New Deal, the New Deal, which is, you can play on the New Deal from FDR, who actually, was, a strong socialist and wasn't really a free market capitalist. Kamala is bad for U.S. manufacturing. They're in bed with BlackRock, pushing a green agenda that is going to make things more expensive and make suburban life harder. And that is middle America. Middle America is right there. So wake up, Roger, or wake up, Michael Moore. I mean, who do you support? Do you really support Michigan or not? If you really support Michigan, how can you say that Harris is going to be better for you? Huh?
And the people that got us here to this great country, and to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way, where and you think of all the.
He's just saying that illegal immigrants. He's you get here. It's not fair for people to come here legally and have to struggle and establish themselves compared to people that are illegal and they're getting freebies where they're getting more money from their city or state, these illegals, than homeless veterans that fought for our country. That's fucking wrong. That is just wrong. Let's see if he talks about homeless veterans.
Things that we have and we give in the world, and the anger and hatred toward Muslims and Arabs. Steve Jobs. I mean, this never gets discussed. Maybe I'm just a trivia nerd, but he's born of Muslim parents. His parents were Arab, and they put him up for adoption. They had to put him up for adoption, and was adopted by the Jobs family.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have.
But if Harris was promoting, the abortion, we wouldn't have Apple. We wouldn't have Apple computers. We wouldn't have the iMac and the iPhone and the iPad if they aborted Steve Jobs. Wow, amazing how that works.
I wouldn't be talking to you maybe on this device right now in this way without this offspring of a Muslim or an Arab. And I think most of
And that is the reason why, Michael Moore, maybe you shouldn't be aborting.
On our knees and thank God that we are the children of immigrants, that we are built this country with immigrants. And the fact that we have somewhere, depending on what numbers you want to believe in, somewhere between 9 million and 11 million jobs right now that we do not have enough people to fill. We have upwards to 11 million unfilled jobs, and as we are told, we have maybe 11 million immigrants who aren't here legally. Geez, doesn't that just, if you have a heart, if you have love in you, if you're proud of this country that was built by immigrants,
have a process where they come here illegally instead of going over the border, breaking the law, and getting benefits that are more than some of our homeless veterans are getting. I prefer supporting our homeless veterans. I prefer making sure that health care at no cost to the veteran is established in our country than supporting illegal immigration. Because supporting our veterans is paramount. But he won't say that. No. no. He'll just promote illegal immigrants.
Somewhere in their head go, geez, we need 11 million jobs filled. We have 11 million people that need citizenship. Why don't we go there? Well, I do, and I think a lot of people are like me. And I think that they are going to be very surprised. I'm talking about the Trump people and the MAGA nation by what's going to happen on Tuesday. Not only do I feel, to answer your question 10 minutes later, that I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast. Absolutely. I feel it more. Now, I know I don't want to say it too loudly because our work isn't done.
Right.
We all have doors to knock on tomorrow. We all have to make sure we get people to vote. I've asked everybody to think of 3 people that maybe they know at work or school or whatever that aren't going to vote, to get them to the polls, drive them to the polls, take them to lunch afterwards, have a party after work, after ever you've taken the office to go vote. We have work to do in these 48 hours. But having said that, I'm very optimistic and hopeful, and frankly, I know people watching this, Mike, how can you say that? You know, we have all these crazy people and all these Trumpsters and MAGA Nation. And what I say to them is, honestly, I have a lot of personal, deep faith in my fellow Americans.
Yeah, and it's definitely
going to do the right thing.
It's a very important sentiment. I think a lot of people are definitely counting on the goodness of Americans to see this through. Let me just talk about your state, Michigan, for a moment.
We got a lot of deep faith Americans that Michael Moore puts a lot of stock into to do the right thing, to not audit the election, not look at the Dominion Code, not question the improprieties that are going on in municipalities. Deep faith in some kid with a backpack just stuffing ballots in a box. Why do we even have these ballot boxes out in public, where anyone can dump anything in there? They should be going to an office, they need to sign something, and it's one ballot. It's not 10 ballots, it's not 15 ballots, it's one ballot, and it's signed. They sign that they delivered it to the office. No, you make these ballot boxes so you can play games. That's the elephant in the room, Michael Moore. Well, you're an elephant too, because you need to lose some weight.
Talk about the last time you joined us back in July when Biden was still running. You had this to say about his support for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Take a listen.
The fact that he would decide to hug Netanyahu, to go there and tell him, as the tape you just showed in November, just people wanting a ceasefire, that's it. No, he goes, no. This has, I think, really rattled people in my state.
All right, so that was back in July. Give me a sense of what you anticipate happening in Michigan on Tuesday.
Well, when Biden was running there in the early summer, support for Biden-Harris, which was at 70% 4 years ago, they got 70% of the Michigan Arab Muslim vote, was down to 12% because of Biden endorsing, embracing, and enabling the slaughter of tens of thousands of civilians. I don't know anybody watching this, whether you're Irish, whatever group you're part of, if you were Jewish, just pick the group, and your tax dollars are going to kill the cousins, the relatives, the friends, the neighbors of where you came from. What do you think the people of Detroit and Dearborn are going to do with that? Well, the good news is Biden stepped aside, Kamala Harris came in, and that 12% support of Biden-Harris jumped to over 43%. That's good news, but it's still quite a bit behind the 70% they had 4 years ago. So we're estimating in Michigan, possibly we need 40,000 votes of the 40,000 Arab and Muslim Americans they're not going to vote for Trump. I mean, he already had 1/3 of the vote. He'll get 1/3 of it this time, not anymore.
As the world turns, please go to my store, because the election is in free for all, and you know, you may not be able to sleep. So please go to my store and get the Good Night formula. This has tryptophan and melatonin in it. It's very important to have a good night rest because it helps to detoxify your central nervous system with getting into deep sleep and REM cycle sleep. It helps to consolidate memory, and you're going to be well rested. Chronic sleep deprivation can lead to early signs of dementia. So please make sure you sleep well. It will improve your immune system and it will improve your aging. All right. People that are sleep deprived, they get sick more often and they usually look older. So please make sure that you get enough sleep. Take the Good Night formula every night as part of your anti-aging protocol, as part of the detoxification protocol, especially if you're not getting well-rested sleep night after night. It's important to get the 3 cycles of REM sleep, and many people are not. They're stressed out because of economics or the election, or you know, their whole community is aborting kids, whatever it is. All right, please go to my store and get the Good Night formula. Omega-3 is very important for your cardiovascular health. It'll help to lower LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, so you're improving your lipid profile. That's really important because when you lower your LDL levels, then you're reducing the chances of developing plaque in your arteries. So please go to my store and get the omega-3. Omega-3 also helps to prevent your red blood cells from oversticking and causing clots. So this is very important, especially after the 2020 crisis. So it's really important to take the omega-3 every day. And lastly, vitamin D3. It's a cofactor, a gene expression cofactor. It helps to absorb calcium, and it helps to get cells to go into apoptosis. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the vitamin D3 every day. I take it twice a day. I take it one soft gel in the morning and another soft gel in the evening. You can, if you follow my advice on some of my videos, I also explain on how to use vitamin D3 with other supplements to mitigate, if not completely eliminate, osteoarthritis. All right. As the world turns, what's going on?
Welcome back. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are making their final pitches.
What's going on? All right, this is Fox News.
Each and every day, you make decisions. To make the right decisions, you need more than just data. You need the right information. But getting the right information.
What's their biggest concern right now if you're the Harris team?
Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
So that is very interesting. Jim Messina with his take on the early vote so far. A couple of things here we want to look back, all right? You've got a candidate on the ballot for the third time at the national level. So what does the end vote look like? Does it look like 2016 where Trump squeaked out a win over Hillary Clinton? He swept the blue wall, made it red, Southeast red as well. Or does this election look more like 4 years ago, okay? Here's Biden squeaking out a win over Donald Trump, okay? What did he do? He flipped that red wall, made it blue yet again, then a little bit of blue down here as well in the Southeast. Let's go to this right now because Madison was just talking about the early vote. This is what happened in 2020. You had just shy of 159 Americans voting, okay? So far, right now, okay, no pandemic, no COVID, no nothing. You're at 77 million, so just about half of the total that we expect in the end. And among those, now there's a category of others. You know, sometimes they register as independents, etc. But based on party, based on the states and early voting that report by party registration, Democrats make up 41% and Republicans make up 39%. This is one of these things that Messina was talking about in the soundbite. This is one of the things that I'll cruise on back over here. We'll bring in our guest here today. This is one of the things that Republicans like to see right now in the early voting. We'll see how that shakes out once we add them all up there, Dana.
All right, well, Harold Ford Jr. and Trey Gowdy are here with us, so no one better than to shake that out for us. So your thoughts about that and maybe the concerns that Messina has.
So good morning. Glad to be with you. Election Eve, Trey and I haven't been on the ballot. We understand how election needs feel for candidates across the country. I think you said it well over there at the board. I think it's important for people to realize early voting, what it means for a lot of places around the country, and really battleground states are where we're most focused. As I think about the closing arguments, I think both have probably, Trey was saying in the green room, would have probably liked to do it a little differently. However, I think she's been a little more disciplined. I think in the last 3 or 4 days, she's been a little tighter in her message, more concise in her message. But as you look at the map here and where she's going to spend the night, where she's going to spend the day and perhaps the evening is Pennsylvania. Without Pennsylvania, Democrats can't win. And frankly, I don't think Republicans can win either without it. So this will be the focus today over the next 24 hours. And I got to tell you, this is like Christmas Eve for me. I'm excited.
I was saying, Washington Post headline, Harris's team claims she's no longer the underdog, but Trump team scoffs. Don't know if that's true in the end, but what about Harold's thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Donald Trump, your closing argument should be twofold. Number one, you had 3 years to do whatever the next thing that comes out of your mouth is, and you didn't do it. And most Americans think our country's headed in the wrong direction. Instead, he spent the week explaining what someone else said at one of his rallies at Madison Square Garden. She, on the other hand, wants to be talking about turn the page. Joe Biden is not turning the page. He's the table of contents. He's the foreword to the book. And yet he uses the word garbage and she has to explain it. What I find fascinating about Pennsylvania is it's really a microcosm for the country. It's 2 urban centers with Texas in the middle. So who's going to win? It's no longer, I don't think, whatever the old political dynamic, it's now urban versus rural. And Pennsylvania, I think, proves that. Who can win? The cities or the rural area in between?
Here's something that is, I think that the Trump campaign would like to try to close on this one as well. They've been trying to define Harris for the last 100 days since she became the candidate. You pull up call for number 3 here. These are the issues that Harris's team has declined to say whether she still supports. And it has everything from immigration and the Senate filibuster, the closing private for-profit prisons. She's called that morally wrong. She wants to install a climate envoy in every embassy around the world, et cetera. There's all of these
socialist,
Harold. And, is that a reflection of the campaign being so truncated, so short, so she didn't have time to do that? Or does she not want people to know where she stands?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know this. If I were running against her, if I were Donald Trump, this is what I would have been talking about the entire time. I'm slightly surprised that President Trump is not closing at the border. I mean, I would have had the cameras there saying to the country, here's why I have to be president again to ensure that we get some reasonableness and sanity here. I think for President Trump, some of the undisciplined way he is closed has invited people or given people permission to think back about the things they didn't like about him 8 years ago. And the question is, do you want that in your living room? Do you want that in your dining room? Do you want that in your kitchen, your bedroom, wherever you consume television or media for that matter? And for her, I'm surprised that she didn't have to give.
Don't you want America to be interesting? Do you think America will be interesting under Harris? Or do you think America would be interesting and you get a better light on the national security state under Trump?
Forum interview. I'm surprised she didn't have to do more. I thought what she did with Brett, she did a good job. I would have done more if I were her. But we'll have an opportunity to say this Wednesday or Thursday. I think as we sit here today, she's in a good position. He's in a good position. It's interesting that he's going to spend as much time in Georgia that the Republicans are. I thought you would think that Georgia and North Carolina might be locked up, but in fact,
it seems like the play he's been running for the last 4 days is Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. Now, if you go to the board over there and add up electoral votes, that would be enough to get him back in the Oval Office. Just a couple things on that. If she wins, Trey, she would be the first candidate, certainly in the modern era, perhaps ever, who's never held a formal press conference. I don't know how you feel about that, but Nikki Haley went public
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside. You get the Bearskin Tactical Hoodie 4.0, the 10-pocket tactical micro fleece.
How you feel about that? But Nikki Haley went public. Here's her op-ed today. Trump isn't perfect, but he's the better choice. If you like his policies but are put off by his tone or excesses, consider the cost of the past 4 years. I don't know how you evaluate that, but Nikki Haley's waited twice now on the final 7 days.
Well, my first analysis is I never got in trouble for something I didn't say. So if you don't talk, it's hard to get in trouble. The problem with Kamala Harris is she has a voting record, and it was to the left of Bernie Sanders. I mean, very few Americans think death row inmates ought to be able to vote. I like maybe none. When I say very few, I mean none. But she did. So she either has to explain her change in position, which is always tough, or she has to just not talk. Donald Trump didn't participate in the primary debates. Katie Hobbs won in Arizona. I mean, I think it's on us as voters if we give people a free pass for not having to explain their positions. But both sides have done it in the past.
I hope it's a tradition that ends. I hope this is the last time that we allow the candidates to dictate to us, presidential candidates, when and how many debates they'll have. They should have 3 always, and they should split it up about the issues. But we'll have the opportunity to talk
And
about
Bill and Dana should moderate one.
Trey, if the Trump victory, however, have you given thought much to how it might be different from his first term?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't like it when I say this. I think 2016 caught them all by surprise. I'm not sure they were planning on winning. So finding, vetting good cabinet. I mean, look at the number of original cabinet members that actually survived. So I know the folks running transition for him, they have been hard at work. I think you will see a more closely vetted candidates. I think where he will get frustrated is the House is a slow moving body. It starts all over again. So he may have an agenda, but the House takes a while to get cranked up. He's going to have to do it with executive action, which conservatives used to not like, but now they're okay with it.
Depends on the timing, right? Harold, any final last word?
I don't disagree with what Trey said about President Trump. I think Vice President Harris will have similar challenges. She has a little bit of an incumbency advantage. She'll be able to pick her team, but we got a long way before that.
And you'll likely have a Republican Senate to deal with.
Right, and hopefully a Democratic House. If not, if it's Republican House, Republican Senate, the country may like it because it'll slow things down, but it may frustrate her if she's president.
Get your sleep.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks
All right,
so good to have you here. Counting the votes in Arizona tomorrow night could turn into a marathon.
I'm going to do a product plug here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and please help support my work. I give you some important insight. Some of it's metaphysical, but a lot of it is dealing with how to improve your health and my perspective on what's going on in international affairs and domestic policy and all this stuff. So please help support my work by purchasing the products and following the protocol that I do to slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system. I have been taking antioxidants since I was 16 years old. All right. I am younger than Alex Jones. I'm younger. I'm sorry. I'm older than Alex Jones. Yeah, Alex Jones is younger than me. I misphrased that. So let me rephrase it. I've been taking antioxidants for since I was 16 years old. All right. I am older than Alex Jones. Alex Jones is younger than me. All right, by 2 years. He was born in 74. All right. So I'm older than Alex Jones. I am a lot, biologically, I'm a lot younger. All right. Chronologically, I'm older, but biologically, I'm a lot younger than Alex Jones. All right. So I've been focused on slowing down the aging process and trying to tweak it and taking different types of supplements as they come on board in the market. And some things I've tweaked and stopped taking. Some things I've just added to and learned how to stack. So this is something that I've been doing since the 1980s. All right. And I've learned a lot, on top of some of my academic, learnings, and education. But I do what I say other people should do. All right. I tell you what my protocols are, what I take. All right. How to slow down the aging process and how to improve your immune system. All right. So one great product to take, all right, but you need to stack it. One great product to take is resveratrol. Resveratrol is an antioxidant. It also helps with mitochondrial health, and it will help to get rid of senescent cells. This is important, and it stacks really well with C60, NAD+, and ubiquinol. All right. So please take resveratrol every day. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. All right. But the key to really enhancing the anti-aging protocol is to stack. So please get the resveratrol and take it with the C60, NAD+, or the ubiquinol. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the resveratrol. Probiotics, really important to take, all right? As we get older, we start not digesting properly. Our gut biome is a little bit off, especially if you take antibiotics. If you take antibiotics, it may disrupt your gut biome, and you need to reset it. So for just good, proper health, you need to take a probiotic every day. I have two types. I have a powdered form, which is the one I usually take. I just mix it with my hummus that you'll be seeing me eat shortly here. And it just has a little scooper. You just mix it. It's a great way to take it every day. I take it in the afternoon. Or you can take these VeggieCap form, all right? Both are very high quality probiotics that you should be taking every day, all right? Why do you take them? It will help to reset your gut biome so you can digest better, you're extracting the nutrients better, and you're reducing that inflammatory response of a poor gut biome. When you have a poor gut biome, you may have more inflammation that affects the mucosal barrier of your intestinal tract. When that is disrupted, you're increasing the chances of getting sick, you're increasing the chances of leaky gut syndrome, and you're increasing the chances of DNA damage in the crypt of your colon. So take my advice, proper diet, proper exercise, right? And make sure you get a probiotic, all right? So please go to my store, get the VeggieCap version, or you can get the powdered version that I have here, and reset your gut biome and take it every day. And you're going to start realizing that your metabolism is better, you're having more energy, and your mood's better, because there's a communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, improve your mental clarity, your mood, your metabolism, and reduce that inflammation in your gut. Go to my store and get the probiotics.
All thanks to a ballot in Maricopa County that is unusually long. Tell us more. Alicia Acuna, she's there in Phoenix with the story. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Dana. I spoke with a Maricopa County elections official who told me that the county is already, quote, backed up as it processes the early mail-in ballot here. And in large part, that's because of the county's long ballot. It is 2 pages, double-sided, with an average of...
We experience the life we focus on. If you and I want to have an extraordinary quality of life, then you have to understand what creates the quality of your life. Because whatever you...
2 pages, double-sided, with an average of 79 different contests. It's twice as long as most years. So taking the pages out of the envelopes is double the time. This could impact voters in 2 ways. First, it's likely going to delay fuller results we historically see here in the hour after the polls close. We will still be able to report early results, but only a percentage as they catch up. Maricopa County says they are working 24/7 and have added shifts. And second, a long ballot can equal long lines on election day. We talked to a couple of people who said it took them about an hour.
It definitely took more time, and I felt like I did have to spend more time going into depth on everything on the ballot.
Are you concerned about the lines on Tuesday, people waiting while other people are filling out that long ballot?
I am concerned. Ease of voting has always been a concern for me. So I think, the whole system needs to be reframed and really thought about to make voting easier for everybody, because it is a struggle here.
Maricopa County is a must-win in this state, and elections officials here say it could take between 10 and 13 days for the final tally. Dana, some people will remember, we were here, standing here in 2020 and 2022. It felt like for days on end. It has to do with
Remember what the Bible code is saying. Trump wins, but it's not finalized until Friday. Why?
here in the order in which the ballots are allowed to be counted. So we're trying to establish kind of a level set for expectations because, again, Arizona is going to Arizona. So we're all just going to have to settle in. Dana.
Come on, Arizona.
Ew.
Figure it out. Thanks, Alicia.
Hey, Dana, we showed you just a moment ago, among the battleground states now, Democrats lead Republicans in turning out the vote. So, but it's only by 2 points. That gives Republicans a lot of hope that they can overcome this tomorrow with their in-person vote. Here's another thing we're looking at right now. Gender gap is huge right now. Men favor Trump by 18 points. Women favor Kamala Harris by 16, according to the poll that NBC put out. And here we go on the issues, all right? Immigration Trump, inflation Trump, economy Trump, unite the country, Harris, and abortion, Harris by 20 points. 50.
So unite the country for abortion, vote for Harris. Yeah.
Well, one last thing here on women, they turned out by 53% and men 44%. This is not battlegrounds. This is all the votes that have been cast thus far.
So women, you want to unite the country so you can have your abortion. Now, most likely, those are coming from high density areas in the country, these mail-in ballots. But who knows? Who knows? You know, I'm telling you, there's this charge within Yisod, in the Sephirah, that you know, with male, female, you know, this whole idea of gender dysphoria and this the battle for abortion, and it's just the family rights and this idea of, you know, the family unit. You know, it's even the term Yisod is like foundation. There's a foundation. It's just, before it goes into Malchut, it's called foundation. But there's a procreation, sexuality component to the attributes of the Sephirah for Yisod. And you can see it. There's this division that's taking place at a Kabbalistic level here. Yeah. Unite the country. Have your abortion. Yeah.
Point. Typically, in a national election, women make up 52% of the vote nationwide. So that's just a tick higher, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow. I'm Steve Juicy.
I'm Brian Kilney.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe.
This is crazy. It's really crazy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35 or the Max 14. Max 35 is 35 ppms. Max 14 is 14 ppms. This is a structural nanosilver liquid that you take with a teaspoon. You just take a teaspoon of the liquid each day, swish it in your mouth, gargle with it, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then swallow it. What will happen is it's neutralizing pathogens and maintaining the mucosal barrier, that lining, maintaining that barrier to mitigate infection. It's a great way to neutralize pathogens, and it's part of a 3-pillar system of my protocol. The first pillar is neutralize pathogens, the second pillar is bring down inflammation, and the third pillar is taking strong antioxidants to soak up free radicals. So please go to my store and get the Max 35 or the Max 14. Take a teaspoon a day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season or whatever, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. And since we were talking about inflammation, a great way to bring down inflammation is to take turmeric. Turmeric is an antioxidant, so it'll soak up free radicals, but it will also bring down inflammation. This is great to help improve your immune system and to slow down the aging process. In addition, by taking turmeric, it will also help
with your recovery during a workout because it's reducing that inflammatory response from the workout. Taking ashwagandha also will help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And let me explain why. Ashwagandha root will control your glucose levels, all right? Your blood glucose levels. So lower your blood glucose levels. Blood glucose is much too high in the United States, and that's pro-inflammatory. So if you're controlling the blood glucose levels, you're reducing the inflammatory response because of those high glucose, that high glucose level. You also control cortisol levels. By having high cortisol levels, chronic cortisol levels will weaken the immune system. Because what happens is that that's a very pro-inflammatory response, and if it's chronic, it can cause problems with your body, cause damage, and you'll age faster. And in addition, when you have high cortisol levels, you have problems sleeping. So again, I told you the whole reason why it's really important to get 3 cycles of REM sleep. So you want to control your cortisol levels, and you want to control your blood glucose levels. And you can do that taking ashwagandha root. In addition, when you do that, you're bringing down that inflammatory response. So you're helping with your immune system, but you're also helping with your cardiovascular system. Because remember, it's through inflammation and oxidized LDL that causes the buildup of plaque. So these are synergistic. You can take them together, turmeric and the ashwagandha, bring down inflammation, help with your cardiovascular health, and help with your immune system. All right. What is going on with Fox?
Now, there used to be a cookie cutter way to help you be successful online. And a cookie cutter worked really, really good. In fact, spawned tons and tons of businesses almost overnight. The problem is we're too good. And
well, we're here on the couch. We're actually in Studio M, which is a timeshare, because during the morning we do this show, and then tonight, Brett Baer, the anchor and executive editor of Special Report, takes over with the special coverage.
Same positioning.
Pretty much exactly. We just swap out a couch for a big desk.
Big desk.
Big plastic.
Good to see you, guys.
Yeah, good to see you. I know you toured this afternoon yesterday. What do you think? I mean, there's times when you have to be like a laser with your questions. Other times there's so many smart people, so many experienced people that don't really know what is next, or I never saw anything quite like this.
We haven't seen anything like this being this tight. You know, I did say last night on the panel, I know it's going to be either really, really close, or Harrison's running away with it, or it's a Trump landslide.
Right. I want to know. I think you've covered all the bases. Absolutely. So let's talk about Nikki Haley. She's on board, at least in print, in the Wall Street Journal. One of the Trump officials told me they like this better than a joint appearance. The headline is Trump isn't perfect, but he's the better choice. And she gets specific from domestic policy to foreign policy. Does this go a long way?
I think it does. I think it does with especially a Wall Street Journal reading, maybe a Nikki Haley following voter who hasn't decided. Understand that I don't think there are many who haven't decided. Peggy Noonan said there's undeclareds, but maybe they've decided. I think there are smaller and smaller groups of people who haven't come to the decision.
Yeah.
It's just whether they're going to be motivated to vote on Tuesday or not. 80 million people will have voted. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. Do you think have you heard there are a lot of voters that are just not going to vote because they don't like either candidate?
I haven't heard that. I've heard a lot of motivation, and both sides think that they are really stirring up their base. I've talked to both sides about ground game, and there is an equal thought about it. Democrats traditionally have a better ground game, so they feel confident about it, but
The Republicans have done a great job this year, though.
with Elon Musk and others.
Yeah, in fact, I was just talking to one of the people who is involved on the Republican side in the Get Out the Vote tomorrow, and he was telling me that the Republican early voting is much better than it was in 2020. Obviously, now it all comes down to if they can get out the vote, and he's cautiously optimistic. But at the same time, the Democrat machine is really good at it.
So I think there's two things to watch. One is the gender gap that we've already seen, and how does that play out versus men, women, and how it breaks down. We'll see some of that early in the night to be able to tell us if it matches what we're seeing. And then the second thing, and there's the wide gender gap, 57-40, 58-41.
The NBC, but it's 18-16, so there's more men voting for Trump than there are women voting for Harris.
But there are more women who traditionally vote.
Right, so you're only in Georgia too.
And then independents. There's this independent bunch that's already voted. How are they breaking?
You know, if they're breaking for Harris, that means something. If not, I personally think we're going to be in for a long night.
A long night or a long week?
No, I hope not a long week.
Right, tell me the states that make you think it's gonna be a long night, and not so much close, but how they do things.
Yeah, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they don't start counting until the polls close, and they did not pass the law to do that. So I talked to Governor Shapiro. He said they're going to count through the night. Nobody's stopping, but they start opening the envelopes when the polls close.
And it actually could come down to Pennsylvania. Someone I talked to said it looks like Donald Trump will win North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and a good shot in Nevada. That means he would only have to win one of those three, Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. But Kamala Harris would have to win all three of those.
And you look at it in the margin of error, each one of those states. I mean, right now, heading into today, the Real Clear Politics average of the recent polls had him up 0.3% in Pennsylvania, right? 0.2% in Wisconsin. Now he's up, but it's all within the margin.
Right, and you know, every swing state is within the margin of error. And there's an item today in the New York Times and the Washington Post as well, talks about how, given past polling errors, we don't know what polling error they're going to make tomorrow, but there probably will be one. One candidate could actually sweep the swing states. And when you look at how all of the polls are,
let me just
punched out,
interrupt here.
people go,
So the S&P 500 is trading at 5,700, just above 5,700. So it's been trading down. And VIX is at 22.67, and oil is trading at 71.31. So today's a kind of a down day, but this is all election volatility going on here.
what's up with that? Are they just covering their bets because they don't want to say, hey, it was too close, we couldn't call it? They could call it, but they're not.
New York Times, Sienna, at the bottom of that poll we couldn't get a lot of white Republicans to answer, less than we had in 2020. So we might be undercounting Mr. Trump again. And that was like in the small print. And I think that's where we are. You know, when I asked Mark Penn on the panel last night, who do you want to be? Who would you rather be? And he said Donald Trump, which I was surprised. I mean, he's the Democratic pollster. Alice Castellanos, Karl Rove, they all had different things to say. But I think that they feel like the Trump folks are in a good spot.
A couple of things. Axios today called her the no comment candidate because she had a chance to weigh in on crime with that Proposition 36 out in California, and said, where did you vote? Did you vote to reform criminal justice in California? She said, I really don't want to put my hand on the scale. When you asked her, we rolled that clip in. When you asked her about where do you stand on transgender surgeries for prisoners who are legal immigrants, to follow the law. Well, what do you think? Right. And she had no answer. I think it's a bad precedent for a candidate to could be president without answering any questions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Especially someone in office.
So numerous times. But I think
they use this as an opportunity to define themselves.
Right. And I think she was using that to not, alienate one side or the other, but sometimes by doing that, you do. People want answers. I mean, the thing about Donald Trump is how he feels about pretty much everything.
Right. And he's been a president before, and she's been a vice president before, so you can compare the records. Do you think, like in 2016, there'll be that silent voter still that doesn't want to admit they're voting for Trump because maybe other people
or Harris?
I do think it might go the other way too.
You do.
I actually
what about the Jewish vote? I'm hearing from some friends here in New York that feel comfortable telling me, since I work at Fox, that they're saying, don't announce it on TV, don't say my name, because they're voting for him, but they don't want the community to know.
I told you guys this story back in 2016. Outside where we had that tent, we were outside where Hillary Clinton was getting the nomination.
Oh, yeah.
We had a really good spot in the parking lot. But anyway, the Democratic nomination, and walk out, and there's a guy with I'm with her t-shirt, the union guy. And he said, hey, Brett, I'm not with her, okay? And I said, are you alone in that? He walks me back to the lunchroom, 150 people. He says, how many of you guys with her? No hands. How many of you guys with Trump? 150 hands.
Right.
And so those were people that couldn't say it, but they were all supporting Trump. I think there is that element still. But I'm not sure how much.
Dr. Paul Cottrell is going to vote for Trump in a blue city, also known as New York City. All right?
we know about the vote that's already banked, especially this gender gap.
If she loses, when the finger pointing starts, do you think they will regret not having come on Fox more?
I do. I think to get more eyeballs, to especially for disaffected Republicans or independents that they were trying to get with Liz Cheney and other efforts that they were making. Yeah, I think so.
And you don't have to answer, but you told me in the green room about a brush with a celebrity. Do you want to reveal this because it is very interesting?
Well, yeah. It only happens in New York. I went to dinner with Harold Ford and Alex Castellanos last night, and Alec Baldwin and his wife came up to the table, and he said, "I really liked playing you." And so they were very gracious. I didn't take a picture. I thought it was a little over the top. Harold said we're too big for that. And I said I would have loved a picture.
But you're kicking yourself.
Yeah.
So how was
he? Was really gracious. He was really great. We had a nice conversation.
Well, you know you made it. You're
Oh, yeah.
on SNL.
Right.
Was he watching you to see how you ate so he can portray you
again? Don't you guys have?
We got him.
Oh, yeah.
We've had many.
Not everyone's happy with theirs.
How's yours?
not good?
Okay, all right.
I had that guy Bobby Moynihan.
Yeah.
Easily 150 pounds overweight.
Wow.
A ton of shit. But whatever.
So you've got a big night. It starts tomorrow night at 6 p.m. with Martha.
Yes, and it's going to be a cast of thousands. We will have everything covered, and it's really cool. The technology is going to be.
How do you prepare?
Showing
Again, I'm doing a live coverage of the election night and following the markets too, because there's going to be overseas trading at the same time, and then the futures market. So I'm going to be talking about the market. I'm also going to be, covering the polls and everything that I do with the show. But please go to my channels, subscribe to all of them, and I will be doing a live feed on one of the channels. It will be the big channel, or the second to big channel on YouTube. And you can follow me that way live. So just make sure you subscribe to all my channels and check in. I'm going to start the show at about 7 o'clock. And I also will have a feed for Spaces on X. So you can raise your hand in Spaces and come onto the show and tell me your take on election night, who's going to win, what you're seeing, what's going on in your area, why you voted for whoever. I'll be cordial, even if you're a Harris supporter and, want to destroy the country, but that's okay. But, the bottom line is I'm going to do a live show, take calls, starts at 7 o'clock, probably going to take this all the way to about 11 or 11:30. So please make sure that you follow my channels and tune in on my live feed at 7 o'clock tomorrow. 7 p.m.
What does he do? He's in another dimension.
No, it's like Tom Cruise. What's that movie? Tom Cruise.
Minority Report.
Those new graphics are incredible. Now. He has the two boxes, and he can pull the states into.
He can move things around, which is great.
It's going to be fun.
This is our studio.
It's going to be really cool to watch, and I think you're going to feel that you're a part of it.
What do you do to prepare?
Drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a lot in common.
Yes. All right.
Brent, thank you very much.
Yes. Okay.
And first do radio, not us.
Okay.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
All right, let's go to Bloomberg. We haven't heard anything about.
You support Trump, you need to see this. Brighteon Channel is giving away a free one.
I think the point about who does that benefit? I mean, both sides, all sides are showing up. The real question is, what do voters want and what's at stake? And how many of these voters are new voters?
In 2020, it
did
did
not show up in 2020 or in 2022. A lot of the get out the vote work has been focused in the civil rights community and certainly by us at the leadership conference of making sure those people who can vote know where and how to vote and feel that their vote matters and will count. And that's why I think we're seeing high turnout, is people are feeling that.
Whenever you're speaking anecdotally to Americans across the country, what's more specific when it comes to policy proposals do they constantly keep bringing up to you?
Look, people are very concerned, obviously, about everything from the state of our democracy and our freedoms, particularly abortion. But in communities of color, criminal justice reform is a huge issue, as is education. But I think we also know that across the board, costs are an issue. And, one of the things that's been so clear in this campaign is, when Kamala Harris speaks about the fact that she is not going to drive up the cost of groceries, but Donald Trump obviously talking less about costs and more casting aspersions. I mean, people are really trying to listen for, how is my life going to be better? And they're responding to where and how they're hearing very clear messages about what things they would see and feel in their own households and communities. I think that's also why we're seeing so many women vote, because abortion and access to abortion as an issue of healthcare. Reproductive freedom is not just reproductive freedom, it's also the ability to get the care you need, including if your life is in danger. And we're seeing that as a huge motivator and topic of discussion. And I think that's part of why we're seeing what we saw in that.
Trust me, most abortions are because of financial issues. Most abortions are elected because of financial issues. It's not because of trying to save the life of an individual, incest, or rape. Most abortions are because of they're scared, they don't want it, they got pregnant and they don't want it to have a kid. That's the reason. It's like some sort of social economic pressure. Where's the delineation of protecting the unborn? Where? Now, obviously, when you get to late-term abortions, it's, getting into the realm of killing.
That Iowa poll, which showed, frankly, that women were turning out in droves, and we've seen that gender gap. So many women engaged in this election, and that is a big reason.
Right. Maya, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate getting some of your time. Maya Wiley, she's the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, giving us her preview of, again, the selection for tomorrow. And again, the news this morning was I got a new poll out over the weekend showing that Kamala Harris, at least in the state of Iowa, is showing some strength there. So that is certainly notable. And we keep on reporting on the updated polling. But again, election tomorrow. Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines from, I'm not sure where they are. They're in New York or they're Washington.
I think I saw Kaylee in our headquarters.
All right, they're in New York. That's where we're doing it from, folks. That starts right now.
They're going to commercial or are they going right to the show? I'm not sure. We might go to commercial first. Come on.
From the world of politics to the world of business, this is Balance of Power.
From New York. Balance of Power, the globalists.
World headquarters in New York, to our TV and radio audiences worldwide. Welcome to Balance of Power. Alongside Kaylee Lines, I'm Joe Matthew. Thanks for joining us on the Monday edition of Balance of Power here on Bloomberg TV and radio. Kaylee, we have made it to the eve of the election at last. One of the most volatile and unpredictable cycles in modern American history. Here we are.
Yeah, just to think of how far we've come from a race that was supposed to be a 2020 rematch. Joe Biden against Donald Trump. Now Kamala Harris against the former president. Instead, with polls leading up to Election Day tomorrow, still showing them neck and neck. No one is able at this time to confidently call this race.
Too close to call. That goes for a lot of down ballot races as well. And Kaylee, we can't ignore the fact that more than 75 million Americans have already voted, raising a lot of questions about turnout tomorrow and how long it's going to take to call some of these races.
Keep in mind, less than 155 million voted in 2020. So already about half of the electorate from the last cycle has cast a ballot, including in some of those critical battleground states. Georgia, North Carolina have already seen 4 million people or more vote, which is 80% of the total that voted in 2020. We're of course going to be visiting some of those states this hour and in the hours to come as the candidates are doing the same, taking on the battleground states this weekend, presenting their closing arguments.
We stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. You watch. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so much fun. It'll be nasty a little bit at times, and maybe at the beginning in particular, but it's going to be something.
And we will win, because here's what everyone here knows. When you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. We have an opportunity in this election to finally turn the page.
You know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. Like reparations and abortion.
Decade of politics driven by fear and division.
So let's get in the field. Covering the Trump campaign for us now in West Palm Beach, Florida, is Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall. What's happening on the ground there, Tyler?
Yeah, hey Joe, I'm here in front of the Palm Beach Convention Center. This is where former President Donald Trump will rally his supporters tomorrow night for an election night watch party as those results start to pour in. But before he gets here, though, he's spending today crisscrossing the nation, hitting some of those key battleground states that we've been closely covering. Currently, he's in Raleigh, North Carolina. Then he's going to head over to Pennsylvania for 2 campaign stops there, one in Reading, another in Pittsburgh, which is typically considered to be a Democratic stronghold, before ending the day in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, something that all these areas have in common is that they are in counties or they are near counties that former President Donald Trump lost in 2020. So clearly a bid by his campaign to try to shore up support, get out the vote in some of these areas where they feel he might have underperformed in last time around. Now, I don't have to tell either of you at this point in the race, it is all about turnout. Those are the voters that the candidates are trying to court for a sense of the messaging that former President Donald Trump is trying to deliver to supporters to get them out to the polls. I want you to take a listen here to him addressing supporters in another battleground we're closely watching, Georgia.
It would be nice. It's obviously not necessary, but it would really be nice to have more votes than they do. But we're going to bring so many things back to our country, and they're common sense things like that. You need to get out and vote. We're going to do things that are going to make you so proud. And we just don't want to take a chance. You know,
now, we talk a lot about undecided voters. Today, when we're talking about them, though, it's not necessarily undecided between Trump or Harris. It's undecided on whether they will go to the polls at all. These are the voters that the campaigns need to mobilize. But it is important to note, as you noted at the top, we are seeing a surge in early voting. The latest count showing us that at least 76 million Americans have already cast their ballots. Joe and Kaylee, that is well above pre-pandemic levels.
All right, Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall, live in Florida for this election week. Thank you so much. Now, as Tyler mentioned, Donald Trump will be ending his day today in Michigan, and that's where we go next. Joining us from Detroit is Bloomberg's Romaine Bostic. So, Romaine,
Hold
give us a
on.
sense of how it's feeling in a super tight Michigan, not just at the presidential level, but in the Senate race as well.
Yeah, this is probably one of the swingiest of the swing states.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We're in the cold season in the United States, and we don't want the pathogen called the Democratic Party getting into the White House. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and fight the cold season with structural nanosilver drops and lozenges. I have it in honey and lemon. I also have it in blueberry and cherry. They're in 100 count. The drops are smaller than the lozenges, but they'll neutralize pathogens and create the secretions that you need to protect the mucosal lining. So you're neutralizing the pathogen and mitigating further infection. It's really important to neutralize infection and irritants right away. I also have it in lozenges, which are a little bit bigger, in a 21 count with the flavor Manuka honey. So please get a couple bags of the Manuka honey lozenges or the different drops that I have for your household, so you have it available right when you have that irritation. You take it and you're mitigating the infection. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver lozenges and drops. Get a couple bags for your household and be ready for this cold season. Because you don't want to get infected with the disease called the Democratic Party.
Saying that President Trump will be making another appearance here later tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That will be at least his 22nd appearance here in the state of Michigan. Kamala Harris just leaving Michigan just a few minutes ago. She spent the last couple of days through Detroit and in Lansing, Michigan. She has made more than 20 stops here as well, including at least 10 since Joe Biden dropped out of the race on July 21st. Tim Walz also making his way through the state. J.D. Vance scheduled to be in Flint, Michigan, and there's a big reason for that. Of course, the blue wall state, not quite the blue wall state that it used to be. Trump flipping the state back in 2016, Joe Biden flipping it back in 2020, and right now here in 2024, it's all up for grabs. A big part of that, of course, is the level of undecided voters here, probably more so than what we saw in the past two presidential cycles. A big part of that coming from union membership, a big part of that coming from the Muslim and Arab American population.
Trump needs to win Michigan.
Continue their tradition of voting for Democrats, something they've done by about a 3-to-1 margin in past elections. But the time I spent yesterday out in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, Michigan, really strongholds for the Arab American and Muslim populations, tilting much more to Trump this election cycle. The mayor of Dearborn, a Muslim American, endorsing President Trump, and Hammerattic mayor also endorsing Trump. That's the first Muslim majority city here in the United States of America. Anger right now about the Biden administration stance on the situation in Gaza, a protest vote, if you will, that could go for Trump or the third party candidate that's dominating the ballots here in those areas, Jill Stein. A perfect framing of battleground Michigan. Thank you, Bloomberg's Romaine Bostic, as we throw the best of Bloomberg at this election. You'll be hearing a lot more about this as we make our way through the hour here. We want to bring you next to North Carolina, where Bloomberg's Anna Edgerton is standing by with more, yet another swing state that is too close to call, Anna.
That's right. I've just come from Trump's rally here in North Carolina. He was speaking just a short time ago. But I talked to voters outside, and everyone I talked to had already voted. Now, Trump's base in North Carolina is very loyal, very reliable. But the question is whether he can pull in those unaffiliated voters. There are nearly 3 million people in North Carolina who are not registered with either of the major political parties. And so those are really the voters that both campaigns are targeting. There's also a bit of an enthusiasm gap here in the final week. Republicans, very loyal to Donald Trump, but Democrats have turned out and added people to their volunteer base. There are 45,000 people who have volunteered for the Harris campaign since she became the candidate, and 95% of those are volunteering for the first time. So they're doing everything they can to turn out the vote, to make sure.
How much are they being paid? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the lignin powder that I have. You take it every day. This helps to boost up your immune system and brings down inflammation. All right? It also is an antioxidant. It helps soak up those free radicals. It's really important to boost up your immune system, slow down the aging process, but also improve your endocrine system. This is for males and females. It'll help with the hormonal and your hormonal axes for your endocrine system, but it's great for your immune system. So it's for males and females. Take the powder, mix it with food, a smoothie, or you can mix it with filtered water. Take it every day, boost up your immune system. Take the lignins, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I also have a detox zeolite. Zeolite is a negatively charged molecule that will soak up positively charged molecules like heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, especially forever chemicals. So it's really important. Start with filtering your water and stop eating bad food, all right? Pre-packaged, pre-processed kind of, food. That's really bad for you, all right? Stop doing that. The next step is to detoxify your body. And a great way to detoxify your body is to take zeolite. Soak up those heavy metals, those toxins, and chemicals. You can take this every day. Just take a couple drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. If you want to detox only once or twice a year, which is okay too,
what you do is you take about 4 drops underneath your tongue or more, drink the filtered water, and do that until the whole bottle is gone, and then you do that once or twice a year. It's up to you. But you do get better results if you have a maintenance, you do a maintenance all year round. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Don't be a Democrat.
People who need to learn more about these candidates can and make the decision to actually go and cast a vote.
All right, Bloomberg's Anna Edgerton in North Carolina. Thank you so much. And as we spend our time looking at these 7 battleground states that ultimately could decide this election and how everything will shake out, we're gonna have the voice now of Laura Brown, political scientist and author of the book Amateur Hour, Presidential Character and the Question of Leadership. She is joining us live from Washington, D.C.
Oh,
Laura,
let's bring up Bloomberg with pro-globalists. Pro erode the Constitution, pro one world government. Bloomberg is all about, you know, economic regional areas. Break down the borders, weaken the currency. Pro globalist, ship the manufacturing to lower cost centers so the traders on Wall Street can make more money. Who cares about the middle class? That's Bloomberg, all right? And so they're going to bring on, just hours away. Tomorrow people are finalizing their votes. So hours away from the election day, and they're promoting a book about Trump being, a bad guy. Amateur hour. Balance of power, but there's no balance of actually journalism. This is the reason why I go after Bloomberg so much, because they are biased. They don't want Trump in office because Trump is about reversing some of the tide of globalism and moving more towards a America First agenda. All right? Bloomberg doesn't want an America First agenda. Believe me, middle-class America will benefit from an America First agenda. But no, they're gonna demonize Trump. They're gonna demonize Trump. They're gonna demonize people that are against globalization, and they're gonna demonize individuals that are America First. Fucking bullshit.
Everyone was struck by a poll not in one of the swing states. It was the Des Moines Register poll in Iowa that showed Kamala Harris up by 3 points. Obviously, it's an outlier, but it does reveal some things demographically about women and senior women.
Now, remember what Huckabee said when we were doing our broadcast, this transmission, and it was genius. No one's going to Iowa, so it's already in the bag. The game is in Iowa. Neither candidate is going to Iowa.
In particular, and I wonder what it makes you think about whether or not Kamala Harris is seeing a last-minute surge in momentum.
Well, I do think that there is a last-minute surge toward Harris, but I think that this is a surge that has actually been underreported for much of this campaign, because so much of what is happening is about the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the Dobbs decision that has forced many women to reconsider not only their presidential votes, but also their partisanship. And this is where there are fascinating numbers when you look at both the Seltzer poll and the early vote data.
Well, interesting if we can add another poll to this conversation, Laura, and that's New York Times, Siena College. They're out with their last blast of the cycle, and it dropped this morning. Really interesting here. Not only are things tied up, we know that in the swing states, but the early vote is giving us a sense maybe of the direction that things are going in the late hours here. Signs that late deciders are breaking for Harris. Among the 8% of
Bloomberg
voters
is trying to demonize Trump.
She wins 55% to Trump's 44%. How seriously are you taking these numbers?
Well, I take them seriously because when you look at the overall early vote data, we don't know who is actually voting for whom, but what we do know is who is turning out. And who's turning out are white women who are older, and many of them in suburbs. Because when you look at that data, you do see that there is a gender gap, you do see that it's suburban voters, and you do see that it's more senior voters than not.
I'm not trying to demonize or ridicule senior women, but why do they care if there's abortion? Their ovaries have dried up, all right? What is it with white suburbia that hates having family creation? I don't understand this at all. I do not understand this dynamic that's going on in the United States. What the hell is going on in white suburbia?
And I think that this is going to be important as we play this forward. It's also particularly interesting when you think about Iowa, which had a sort of reversal or a lockdown with regard to abortion in the immediate aftermath of the decision. And then you take a look at some of those southern states where Harris and the Democrats are even competing at the Senate level. Those in some ways look not like as uncertain as what we're actually seeing in Pennsylvania, where abortion has been protected.
Well, so as we consider that, Laura, and in the states in which there is abortion on the ballot in this cycle, along with the presidential or down ballot candidates, whatever it is, including states like Florida, for example, I wonder if that's where you will be watching for surprises, is areas where there are these other measures on the ballot aside from just the candidates themselves. I could add marijuana to that list or any number of others.
Yes, but I agree with you. I do think that if there are surprises that happen, they're going to happen in states that have already placed inordinate restrictions on abortion, and women are already faced with the healthcare consequences of those decisions.
I want to ask you a little bit more about the undecided voter, Lara Brown, because I'm not sure who this person is. We still haven't met them. We keep talking about them, and I know we're fighting over a very narrow slice of pie here, but that Siena poll I mentioned found 11% of voters remain undecided or persuadable. That number's down from 16% about a month ago. Who are these people? What is making up this rare breed?
Well, I would argue that many of these undeciders are people who actually were what we called the double haters, right? They are people who likely voted for Trump at one point in 2020, maybe reversed themselves and voted for Biden. And now what they're uncomfortable with is they didn't like either choice they had. Harris has been able to turn the page and offer them a sense of change, but many of them are not yet sold because she is part of the current administration. So I think their choice is really, are they going to sort of side with who they did last time, which was the Democrats, or are they going to just skip voting altogether?
Or perhaps pick another choice, which may appear on the ballot in some of these states. Laura, we were just hearing from our very own Romaine Boston about the movement toward Jill Stein within some of the population in Michigan, but RFK Jr. is also going to be on the ballot in Michigan. The court decided so, and I wonder what impact you think that will have.
I think many of those voters are going to decide it may not be worth it to turn out because they know that in this election in particular, third-party candidates are not generating a significant amount of support. And most voters on election day ask themselves if they are comfortable wasting their vote. So I do think we're going to see very little actual vote share at the end of the day for these third-party candidates.
A lot of questions, Laura, about ticket splitting, and I know I get some eye rolls when I ask experts about this, but the fact is all the Democratic candidates for Senate in the races that we're watching are outperforming Kamala Harris in those cycles, echoed again today in that Siena poll. Will ticket splitting be a phenomenon in states beyond Arizona?
Well, I think we are going to see it in some states. I would be surprised if it was, double digit or that it was more than sort of 4% of voters doing that. But there are some voters who say to themselves they'd like to have their incumbent be reelected, but they may have a desire for change at the top of the ticket. And that could, reverse as well. So we will see some splitting because many voters say to themselves, it's good to have divided government, even if all of our political science shows that that is a recipe for deadlock.
Well, yeah, markets might prefer a divided government as we consider our audience here on Bloomberg TV and radio, and that does seem to be at this time what they are betting on. Laura, we've had a long conversation for the last several weeks, frankly, of how the markets seem to have much more conviction than we were seeing in the polls or than most political scientists like yourself were telling us about the odds of a Donald Trump victory. It does seem like some of those bets are getting pared back as we look at what is happening in treasuries, in the dollar, and some of the other Trump-oriented trades today. And I just wonder if this is now the market meeting what everybody knew, or if something else has emerged to get to where we started this conversation on the idea of momentum that actually suggests things are different on this Monday than they were just days ago.
Well, I think what is different is that this is the time when organization actually begins to show. So I think what we are seeing is that the Harris campaign has been organized. They put substantial resources. They've had thousands of volunteers. And
Harris is notorious to being disorganized and infighting within her campaign. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, that they're so organized and in sync and on the same page, something doesn't sound right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this structural nanosilver gel. This is a dual purpose product. It will help improve your skin by applying it on your skin before you go to bed, exfoliate in the morning. You'll notice your skin is clearer and tighter, especially around your face. This can be used to neutralize pathogens. You can put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours to neutralize pathogens. In addition, if you have a cut or an abrasion or a minor burn, you put it on that cut, lesion, and it will heal quicker, about a third of the time quicker. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver gel. It is a dual purpose product, right? And I believe in dual purpose products to provide to my audience. I also have a structural nanosilver toothpaste. Get a couple tubes of this for your household. It's a very high quality toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to get. It has no fluoride in it. All right. And this will neutralize pathogens, whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, maintain a good gum line. And with good oral hygiene, you're reducing the chances of cardiovascular disease and you're reducing the chances of valvular disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this great high quality toothpaste. Get a few tubes of this for your household. It's very high quality. It's way better than anything that Alex Jones sells. My products are better. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Door knocking in all of the battleground states. Former President Trump mostly outsourced that work to Elon Musk and to Charlie Kirk. And there are reports that neither of those efforts have been as successful or really as robust. So I think what we're seeing is the markets realizing that when the election sort of comes down to the wire, they may have made a bet more upon atmospherics rather than the data underneath.
All right, well, let's stick with this for a minute then, Laura, because I have to ask you not who's going to win the election, but when it might be called. There were a lot of concerns on Wall Street that we could go through several days of uncertainty, not unlike 4 years ago, and we know how much the markets love that. What's your take on the days after this election?
I actually think this is going to be called fairly quickly. And the reason why is because both Georgia and North Carolina are poised to count their ballots really before the end of the late night, early morning on Wednesday, which really—
You're not going to know about Pennsylvania until days later. because it's probably going to be close. Wrong.
We'll be waiting for Pennsylvania, but when we have a sense of Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina, we're going to know about the rest of the states, and we'll have a strong sense of the Electoral College.
Really glad you could be with us on the eve of the election. Political scientist Laura Brown, we thank you as always for joining us here on Bloomberg TV and radio. It is on. There's no turning back. We're here mobilized at World Headquarters in New York until we have a race call. More and more people joining us in the last week or so, I'd say, Kaylee, suggesting exactly what Laura Brown just said, that it's not going to be next weekend or weeks. It's going to be a couple of days.
Well, I think we're all holding out hope for that, keeping in mind that we are no longer in a pandemic as we were in 2020. So mail-in voting may not be as prevalent as it once was, and some of these states have had important rules changes to make this thing go faster.
77 million Americans voting. Our signature panel is with us here in New York as well. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano are on the way next on the fastest show in politics. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
All right, let's go to CNN here with Bill Clinton.
To learn about Congress. So you might be wondering when we'll get the results this time around. I found back with me to discuss. So David, you're going through all the different scenarios here. A lot of these swing states, there are major factors that could impact timing of projections.
I am also wondering when we're going to have the result, just so you know.
But when you'll sleep again.
Some of the battleground states have changed some of their rules around counting and processing of ballots. Some have not. But I would say if you look at states like Pennsylvania, which cannot process ballots until election day itself. That means they can't open the envelope, flatten it out, do anything to prepare to start counting. And there's still going to be not as much mail balloting as in 2020, Manu, but a significant amount. But look here, Wisconsin also can't process until election day. And then go to the bottom of that list, Nevada and Arizona, there are tons of mail ballots that do not yet get counted on election night. So I would say the two states that are not on there, Georgia and North Carolina, we're hoping for some quick counts early in the evening, see what the state of play is there. But Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada, we're going to wait a while.
You know, Georgia and North Carolina, they have a history of fast count. And there are also states that if they both look good for Harris, that is a big sign that she's going to have a good night. But if they both look good for Trump, it means she is really dependent on getting Pennsylvania. And, you know, even though—
Which doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a bad night. It just means it's going to be a long
right, it'll be a long night. You know, it is true that it took until Saturday last time to declare a winner with the results finally coming through in Pennsylvania. But in 2016, also a very close election, we knew Wednesday morning who had won that race.
Even though Trump said this on election night, even though the race had not been called and been trending in Joe Biden's direction.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
I think you can bet Trump's going to do the exact same thing this time.
I think that the chances that he would accept the results are relatively low now, mainly because he and his staff believe it's over. They believe that they've won. And so I think it would be an authentic shock to him if he does not win the presidency. And there's been a lot of rhetoric out there already calling into question things that are happening in Georgia, things that are happening in Pennsylvania. That's why we've tried to write a lot about trying to get people just to stay calm and understand what David was just talking about, that it takes a while to count these votes. Like the last thing the country needs when people don't trust institutions is now for people to not even trust the election process. And we've seen a rise in that. And that's just not a good
Like
thing.
I said, it's not about counting the votes. It's to make sure that the people that are voting can legally vote. They're not voting multiple times. And that whatever's going into the machine is correct. And there's no flipping, miscounting, or anything. And that means that there needs to be audit. You need to audit the process. And you need to audit the actual votes. You know, you can statistically do this. You don't have to count. Of course, you have to count every vote. But you can audit to make sure the voter rolls are right. You can audit to make sure that the machines are working correctly. And when you audit, not just certify, but audit the process and audit the actual election, then we have a legitimate election. But when you're not auditing it and you don't understand fully and you can't prove that there's not some sort of flipping in the machine through, some black box process, then there could be
improprieties that are taking place in certain municipalities. And this is the point that people that are concerned about election integrity are saying. Certifying the vote doesn't mean anything. Certifying and auditing does. They're two different things.
So, democracy. So, very quickly, how will the Harris campaign respond if Trump does that?
Well, they're prepared. I mean, they have lawyers at the ready because they do expect Donald Trump to declare that he won the way he did in 2020. I mean, he's already saying that illegal ballots were cast in Pennsylvania, which were not. They're reviewing whether ineligible voters are on a registration list. That doesn't mean that illegal ballots were cast. So he's already laying the groundwork to contest the result.
And that means this could go to the courts, and it's going to take some time to play out. Former President Bill Clinton has been barnstorming the country on Kamala Harris's behalf, but he has said little to the media until CNN's Isaac Dober snagged the only interview he's given since he hit the trail. And Clinton got candid about Democrats' fears that America might not, quote, survive 4 years of Trump.
I think you have to look at what the definition of survival is. You can put me on a gritty tube tonight, but it would be like survive. Like I'm surviving. And the same thing's true in all things. I don't know if we can survive or not. I think it would be a travesty if he became president.
And Isaac Dober joins me now to talk more about his exclusive interview with the former president. Wow, he really talked about a lot with you in this article. So you were sitting on his campaign bus with him in Michigan. Give us a sense on your takeaways from this and just the unique way that the campaign is deploying them right now.
Well, he talks a lot about the vantage point that he has as the only person on the planet who has done the job of being president and knows both of the candidates running. And he says to people on the trail, and it should be said, he's been out there. We did an almost 11-hour day on Wednesday. He's been doing that almost every day for the last 3 weeks, a more active schedule than Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or anybody else. Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, Joe Biden, Barack Obama.
What's he like on the trail?
He is quieter than he was. There's no roaring oratory, but there is this sort of one-way conversation or one-way chat that he's having with people, and they are hanging on it. But from the beginning, he said, I want to go to places where presidents haven't gone before. And so there was one of the stops we did on Wednesday was in a place called South Haven, Michigan. He was standing on the porch of somebody's house, right? The former president of the United States talking to maybe 200 people on this little unassuming street in Michigan, trying to find those Democrats, those people who are maybe undecided still, or even Republicans who are not so into what Donald Trump has been saying, maybe have concerns about the economy, and speaking to them and saying, look at her plans, and this is why you should believe in her, and this is the kind of country you should live in.
Let's talk about a little bit more about what he told you. He said, according to quote, he's concerned about Trump's long-term impacts if Trump wins or loses. He said this to you. So a lot of people just can't believe how many voters in America agree that he doesn't make sense, agree that he's advocating for things that we bet, referring to Trump, but somehow think that if the experience was good for them back then, it was magically his doing and everything was fine.
Yeah, and this is at the beginning of that quote. He said, "This is maybe is what happened in the 1930s when fascism was spreading." So this is Bill Clinton saying he likes Kamala Harris. He thinks that she should be elected, but he is worried about what happens no matter what here. There is a problem in our politics, he says, that is deeper and is going to be with us for a while, and it's Donald Trump's fault, he says.
And you also talked to him about the former president, George W. Bush, who they've maintained a close relationship with over the years with Bush, but Bush we have not heard from publicly. What do you tell you about Bush?
He said he was okay with it. He said Bush doesn't get enough credit for speaking out in favor of immigration. And he sort of implied that he knew where Bush was on this, but he said Bush doesn't want to betray the Republican Party that he's been with his whole life.
Because obviously it's one of his brother, Jeb Bush, and he told you this about Colin Allred, who's running against Ted Cruz in Texas. He said, you'll tell anybody that he's a good guy, referring to Colin Allred, but he wouldn't say who he was.
Yes, and I should say that I talked to Bush, somebody close to Bush about this, but I read the comments from Clinton, and the person said he's not going to get involved in presidential politics, but he's helping out in the Senate. I said, what does that helping out include Ted Cruz? And the person wouldn't comment on that.
Amazing.
Ever wondered what's inside your toothbrush?
You know,
We did.
I just you know, they can't say anything positive about Trump ever. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC. This is a new supplement that I have on my store, and I've added it to my protocol, my personal protocol. The reason why I added it to my personal protocol is that it boosts up the glutathione levels, which is a strong antioxidant, and it's synergistic with C60. In addition, it also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, especially if you take acetaminophen. And it helps with calming the nervous system with individuals that have anxiety. So it's a dual purpose type supplement. So you know, people that are in sympathetic mode too often or too stressed out, this will help to calm that. NAC soaks up those free radicals through the glutathione pathway, and it helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, especially due to acetaminophen. NAD+, I also have in my store. And this is something that you should be taking to boost up your energy levels. It's also synergistic with C60 and the NAC. It will help to repair your DNA. As we get older, our DNA gets damaged and we have repair mechanisms. But as we get older, that repair is needed more often, and it's harder to keep up with the workload. So you need to take a supplement to help with the repair of your DNA. NAD+ provides the energy and the repair mechanism. The supplement helps with the repair mechanism for your DNA. In addition, this helps to improve the health of your neurons. That's very important as we get older. Once we get to about age 40, we need to start doing neural protection for your peripheral nervous system and for your central nervous system. So take NAD+ to improve your neurons, to boost up your energy levels, and to repair DNA damage. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAD+ and get the NAC to boost up your glutathione levels and soak up those free radicals and slow down the aging process. All right. What else is going on here? What else is going on? Oh, I think Bloomberg's coming back on board here.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. I'm Kaylee Lyons alongside Joe Matthew, live from Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York on election eve. Tomorrow is the day after, what, a year and a half of run-up following the campaign trail, not just at the presidential level, where this race remains, as we've told you, frequently neck and neck between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, but also with Congress up for grabs.
Yes.
34 Senate seats and all 435 House seats will be decided in tomorrow's vote.
Not all of them worth watching. In fact, it gets to be pretty narrow when you start looking at the races that are actually contested, that we're going to spend time on in the throes of our special coverage tomorrow night. Part of our mission here at Balance of Power is to bring you news as it breaks, to arm you with the best information that you can have to make a decision in this election. It's also to help you watch this tomorrow night, know what to be looking at. Bloomberg's Megan Scully joins us from Washington to help us on that front, taking a look at some of the down ballot key House and Senate races to watch tomorrow. And Megan, it's great to have you with us today on Bloomberg. Happy election eve. Let's start with the Senate, because we can get our arms around this a bit easier, and we will likely know a bit sooner than the House. Democrats have a very difficult map, but the conventional wisdom is that we'll see a historic flipping to opposite parties in both houses. Megan, is that how you see it?
That is what it seems to be. Although, you know, particularly after this weekend's poll in Iowa that caught us many of us by surprise, showing Harris ahead, I am not willing to say anything definitively at this point. But yes, it does seem the map has always been, the Senate map has always been in Republicans' favor. Democrats are defending a lot of seats in states that Trump has won, particularly in Montana, where he's supposed to win by double digits. And you have John Tester trying to hold on there.
Well, and the Tester seat, as well as the West Virginia seat that is very likely to flip Republican because Joe Manchin is retiring are really the only two pickups Republicans would need to take control and become the majority. But how much does the size of the majority ultimately matter, Megan? Not just in the Senate, but the House as well.
Sure. Well, in the Senate, you need 60 votes to do most legislation. In a unified government, though, Democrats can get, or either party could get things through under what's called a reconciliation process. We saw that with the Biden climate law during his first 2 years in office. But without that 60-vote majority, it gets things get a little tricky, and we haven't seen that since the Obama administration. So the size of the majority, parties always want more, but short of 60, it does get things. It is complicated to get things done. In the House, it looks like whoever wins that majority will be a narrow one as well. It's only going to take 4 seats, 4 nationwide seats for Democrats to take the majority in the House. And it's looking pretty favorable for them at this moment.
Let's talk about the House a bit more specifically. This is a beast to cover, Megan. You're going to be and your team knee deep in all of this tomorrow night. The fact is, as we mentioned, not all of these seats are up for grabs or contested, at least. When we look at the way this will play out tomorrow, we might well have to wait for, and I'm assuming that you would agree, California to come to fruition before we actually know which party controls the House. The big states of New York and California will have more to do with this than the swing states, for instance, that we're watching for president and Senate.
Absolutely. So it's interesting, when you look at the House, you're really looking at about a 10th of the races that are competitive. And if you're looking at it sort of from East Coast to West Coast, we'll know early in the evening, we'll get some kind of sense as to which direction this is going, or if it remains a toss-up with the polls coming out of New York. There are also competitive races in North Carolina and in Virginia. So that will give us an early indication. What I'm going to be watching really closely tomorrow night, though, is the heartland. There are 2 House races in Iowa that look very good for Democrats. And then there is that blue dot district in Omaha that Democrats are also seeking to flip. That could signal kind of which way this is going. Of course, we won't know anything for sure, most likely, until much later in the evening, or perhaps days later. It did take a few days in 2022 to call the House. So, but I think that there might be a moment there, sort of late in the evening, after those polls close in Iowa and Nebraska.
Well, and then there's California to consider, which I think, Megan, is why we have to warn our audience about how long it could take for ultimately the total tally of the House to come together. Just, can you tell us quickly why California takes so long, aside from its geographic location, polls closing later in the evening?
Polls close later. It is, there are 5 seats there. They tend to count slowly. We're expecting turnout to be very high. They don't count the early vote before election night. So all of this is going to just drag this out even longer. And I hate to tell you guys, but we might not even know until Alaska comes in, because there is a very competitive race there, Mary Peltola's seat. So we'll see which way that one goes. So it's going to be a long night, and it could potentially extend.
It's really important that the Republican Party win the legislative branch. Really important. One, you can do the subpoena, you have that subpoena power and investigation power from the House. And, the Senate, having that control in the Senate is going to be able to really, prosecute some of these people that have been doing nefarious things with the lawfare and the whole deep state takedown of Trump. It's really important that the Republican Party wins the legislative branch. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video, and get the Noctokinase. This is a great product to help to improve your cholesterol, It'll lower LDL levels. It'll increase HDL levels. It'll also break up clots because it's fibrinolytic. It's great for cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the dantokinase. Vitamin K2, MK7. It's a dual purpose product. And this dual purpose product will help with your cardiovascular health and your bone health. So please take vitamin K2, MK7 every day. If you've been following what I've been saying, I tell you how to reverse arteriosclerosis, and I also tell you how to reverse reverse the osteoarthritis by taking vitamin K2, MK7. Now, if you do some resistance training, you take in a calcium supplement and take D3 and vitamin K2, then what you're going to also have is you're building up denser bone and you're preventing osteoporosis. So vitamin K2 is really important for mitigating arthritis, mitigating osteoporosis, and mitigating cardiovascular disease. Very important supplement. Ubiquinol. I've been taking ubiquinol for years, all right? It's really important. Why? It helps to bring up your energy levels. It improves the health of the mitochondria. It's a strong antioxidant, so it's synergistic with C60. And it also helps to improve the health and it protects your neurons. So when we get older, our neurons don't fire as well, and they're not as healthy. Ubiquinol will slow down that degenerative process. It's really important to take ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the active form of CoQ10. Ubiquinol is the best bioavailable molecule for CoQ10. So take ubiquinol every day as part of your protocol. Really important, especially when you get older and you need to protect your neurons. And lastly, I have C60. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. It's a molecule. It's a carbon that's 60 carbons. It looks like a soccer ball. And it'll soak up free radicals. That's important because by soaking up free radicals, you're going to improve the mitochondrial health of the cell. You're going to reduce the stress on the cell. You're going to increase your ATP. And when you do that, you're going to have more energy. Your immune system is going to be better. Your endocrine system is going to be better. And the health of the cells are going to be better. So your tissues will perform better. So it's really important to take C60 every day. Take a teaspoon of it a day. I have it in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, and avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Take it every day. Take a teaspoon of it a day. That's the broadcast that I have for today. Just a reminder, I'm doing a live show tomorrow at 7 p.m. for the election coverage. So please make sure that you follow. I'll have spaces opened up to take calls to get your opinion on what's going on with this election, what's going on in your area, and who you think will win. So please follow that, follow the channels and watch the live show at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So that's tomorrow, 7 p.m., November 5th. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.